Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the lead singer from Lifted Generation. And Steve isn't here, but don't worry, we have another Steve. We've got Steve Edwards with us, filling in. We need a Steve on every episode. And welcome to the Lifted Panel. Today on the Lifted Panel, we are doing our most requested episode. And Steve Smith, bassist for Lifted Generation, was like, man, I don't feel like doing this, so you guys just do it without me. We're ranking all the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we don't just have Steve Edwards here, we have the breakout star of our podcast, Mr. Victor Krause, a man full of star power. Welcome back to the show, Victor.
Hey, I'm glad to hear it on air.
And Steve, you're quiet, but you're like the co-host for this. You're in the hot seat. You're the primary Steve now.
I'm just mostly offended you didn't call me the breakout star.
But yeah, we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You all know what they are. You clicked on this episode for a reason. Typically with our show, it's a ranking show. Hello, welcome if it's your first time here. We're going to go and rank the movies from least best to best, because we're not saying there's necessarily a bad film in this franchise. And so the way that the show works is that it's a balance of points spread across the panel. So everyone makes their own list, and then we add the points to see where each film adds up. So it's not an average. It's just looking at the total number of points each film gets and where they rank. In the event of a tie, whichever film gets the most low points, so like if someone ranks it as the last place film, and then someone ranks it as the first place film, well then, sorry, whichever one gets more hate loses in the event of a tie. But yeah, we start our shows going around the panel, talk about our history with the franchise that we're discussing. But, you know, since I think Steve Edwards loves this franchise the most, we're going to let him go first, and then me, and then I think Victor probably likes it the least, so Victor can go last.
Okay, real quick then, I have known these characters longer than I've probably known any actual human on the planet, except for maybe my mother, since I was birthed inside of her. I've got pictures of me as a little baby wearing like Marvel t-shirts, and my dad was a huge comic collector. He had X-Men #1 and first appearance of Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and all those things when he was a kid. And so I just grew up into it. Huge fan. I was a kid, watched I'm 34 years old, so when I was a kid, I was in the time frame of watching animated Spider-Man, cartoon, X-Men, all the classic 90s stuff. Got older, 15 when X-Men 2000 came out, and then obviously 2008, Marvel took over, got its own studio. Huge fan of it. I go back with these characters as far as I can remember. So that's kind of history. It's always been ingrained in me. It's been part of my life.
Yeah, and I think I'm largely the same. You know, I grew up watching Spider-Man and X-Men and the Fantastic Four show, the Iron Man show, the Hulk show. So I was into all of those. I was also, my dad had a bunch of those comics lying around, so I, would read the old issues. Gwen Stacy's, neck getting snapped was always part of my childhood, pretty freaking metal. But yeah, I always liked Marvel a lot. I liked Marvel more than DC in general. But
me too.
But I think Batman is better than all the Marvel characters. But I think overall, the Marvel characters are great. Grew up watching superhero films. I was also really into anime. My dad tried to not get me to watch anime and just only watch American cartoons, which is just like, I don't understand this, but I understand this. You should watch this. Instead, I like both. There's room for liking both. So I've seen, I saw most of these films. I saw about maybe half of them in theaters and then half of them just on, video later. So I'm not as obsessive with a lot of these films. We're like, I need to see it the weekend it opens. I'm not that guy with these movies.
I forgot to say that part, yeah.
I know you are. But
yeah.
I enjoy them a lot, and there are, I remember, when I was a kid, being super into Norse Vikings, and when I saw that they were making a Thor movie, and I was like, I don't know how you're going to make that work, but sweet. So, Thor was the one I was most anticipating out of every movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe before its release. So, yeah, that's my brief history. Decent knowledge of comics history and fandom. Yeah, so I'm your average millennial kid who's just into these superhero films and comics. Victor, how about you?
So I'm about 26. So for me, the big entry point into Marvel was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, which I still love to this day. Yes, even 3. And
You're just full of shit on that. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off right now. That movie's a damn travesty, except for the like underground battle between Spider-Man and Sandman.
Yeah, there's some
that is actually an emotional, like, powerful moment, but the rest of that movie is shit.
Well, in the moment that Sandman, like that he turns into Sandman, is a beautiful moment too.
I think it's that one's beautiful in concept, but doesn't actually mean anything. It's just like, oh, this is like a cool short film if it was on YouTube, but is not very good in this movie. Versus, the Spider-Man 3 dramatic scene. Oh, you killed Uncle Ben. But you know what? We've got enough Marvel movies to talk about. Continue, Victor.
Yeah. So these started coming out around the time I was getting into high school, and then they started coming out with alarming frequency by the time I was in film school, and kind of actually primed to really like them. And I think they accidentally released all of their worst ones while I was most excited about them. And I since then, I would usually see them. I would usually wait to see them with my dad because I knew they would be movies we could generally agree on. And while I don't necessarily think all of these movies, or even most of them, or even close to any of them, are particularly good, I do enjoy them to a certain degree. So I'm excited to talk about them because I don't have a lot of comics familiarity. I've read a kind of small amount of Spider-Man and a little bit of like really early X-Men, and that's about it. But I would say I'm certainly a film fan before I'm a Marvel fan. But generally, I would say I would say I generally like these movies even if they're not mostly good.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that's hard. So, I want to add real quick about me also, because I forgot to say that as far as how much you're into them, my thing is I always go see these films opening weekend immediately. Because he said he doesn't know much of the comic lore. I know a lot of that, and I've won like multiple Avengers trivia on the movies and Spider-Man.
Yeah, so we've got a spectrum. We've got the huge comics fan where it's like a big part of your life. I'm somewhere in between where I know a lot about comics, I like a lot, but I don't consider myself like I don't consider like part of my identity as being a comics fan. And I'm not the guy who will go opening weekend, but I did see all of these movies, so some of them opening weekend. And then you've got Victor who's like, yeah, whatever, I'll watch them.
But they all suck.
Well, so, I mean...
They don't all suck.
They don't all suck. And what I would say...
Most of them suck.
Damn.
What I would say, this... In terms of film franchises, I do think this is one of the best. The Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, yeah, the best.
No, that's the Rocky franchise.
Oh, God.
Film for film. I know it sounds like a troll, but actually, film for film, the Rocky franchise is easily the best franchise in cinema. We'll see how Frozen 2 does. Because there's room for Rocky to be overtaken, but thus far, film for film, I would go with the Rocky franchise. I might go this as number 2, but yeah, let's get into this ranking.
Before you read the first one, can I make a guess of what it's going to be?
Sure.
I think it will be Iron Man 2.
You're incorrect.
Oh.
Victor, do you take to guess what the first film in our ranking will be, coming in at the bottom of the list?
My guess is Incredible Hulk.
You are correct.
Oh, damn.
Boom.
Incredible Hulk coming in at the bottom. Because the thing is, there are certain films where one of us might rightly rank it at the bottom. And then, but this is one of the ones that got no love from any of us, where everyone ranked it towards the bottom.
Yeah, it is definitely worse. I don't think it's definitely not the worst. It's not worse than the first 2 Thors or Iron Man 2.
I disagree.
I think it is.
Oh, no.
So here's what I will say about this. I think the Hulk is ultimately... He is a difficult character to write a strong narrative around.
Sure.
Because it's just like, what if a Dragon Ball Z character wasn't able to at least have a quippy one-liner? Where just like, oh, I just get angrier and then I punch things harder. And like, that's like his entire thing. But at least like in Dragon Ball Z, they can trash talk each other. The Hulk can't even trash talk. He just yells.
Yeah, but you can totally do the Dr. Jekyll Hyde thing with it easily and make it a struggle about Bruce Banner, which is sort of what Edward Norton seemed like he wanted to do, but it didn't get there.
Yeah, what I would say, so this, I remember when this movie first came out, and I can't find any info about it online, so they must have scrubbed it from the internet, but I remember people saying it was kind of a sequel to 2004's Hulk, but kind of in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because the movie starts with him already as the Hulk the run.
That's just they just didn't want to do another origin story.
Right, but I think that I would consider, because there's nothing in that 2004 Hulk that conflicts with the MCU, I'm going to count that as part of the MCU also.
Nah.
And I'll say
if the 2004 Hulk is in the MCU, it's in my top 10.
Oh my god, get out of here. You're done.
I mean, look, that one's just straight up just like, here's an Ang Lee art film that he just like put the Hulk in.
With Nick Nolte as electricity.
It's so nuts. I love it.
But yeah, this film, I mean, Edward Norton gives a fine performance. I'm not super into Edward Norton as an actor. I think he's a little bit overrated. Like, he's fine.
He's a great actor.
But I don't think he's like, oh man, he's like, people call him like a genius. I'm like, yeah, he's just pretty good.
Well, the backstory of this film is that he wanted way, way more control than what Marvel wanted, because Disney hadn't stepped in this time, so Marvel was their own studio, and they were trying to develop this thing. But
they're going through Paramount, right?
So this is a little bit different thing, because they share Hulk rights with Universal. So it's all the Hulk's rights are all confused. That's why they can't do any more Hulk solo movies right now. Because
I just thought because they realized, like, he's not that good of a character to have a single movie around.
That's why they created the Hulk 3-movie arc with Ragnarok, Endgame, Infinity War, because they can't do a solo Hulk movie now because the rights are tied up with Universal. So they have to develop his arc more in Avengers, which is why he gets a more screen time than some of the others. But the deal with Edward Norton was that he wanted like a ton of control, and so he rewrote the script a lot, didn't get credit for it, and he was always like.
So that's why it sucks.
Well, apparently he was really, really hard to work with, and that's why
Edward Norton hard to work with. Yeah. You are dropping these shocking bombshells. Color me shocked. It's a good thing I was sitting down when you told me Edward Norton was hard to work with.
He seems like a nice guy whenever you see him in interviews or anything.
Nah, he seems like I don't know the guy, but he kind of seems like one of those, like, when you think of like a douchebag actor, Edward Norton's like the guy I think of. Like, do you ever see Birdman?
I love the Birdman, yeah.
Edward Norton just played himself in that movie.
Well, it's possible. I mean, well, the thing is, if you really think about it, it was like, he was like, I'm going to star in this movie, but I don't like this, so I'm going to rewrite it. So it is very kind of pretentious. And so there was a lot of battle between him and the director, I believe, and so that adds a lot of conflict, and so that may have contributed to the movie not being as good as it could have been.
I mean, the thing is, like, it's fine. Like, I would say this isn't one of the movies I consider out-and-out bad in the franchise. I just consider it to be like, it's fine.
I do like the more serious take on it, because obviously as we get further along, Marvel's going to really start going more to comedic elements, and this one it's the second movie in the MCU, and so it's kind of has a little bit more of a serious, which I do like.
I think the most important things this movie did was they had a really great Stan Lee cameo with him just like drinking the soda with the Hulk serum in it, and like him going like, "Whoa, man!" So like Stan Lee like getting high and then turning into the Hulk is kind of a great concept. So that's pretty cool. And the end credit sequence, like, whoa, this Avengers thing might happen because Robert Downey Jr. is in the credits. Like, but honestly, other than that, I can see why this ranks at the bottom.
Well, and this is the least important to the overarching story, probably, of any of the.
I would say,
aside from where he comes in the Avengers,
that's it.
It's like not mentioned at all.
That and Thunderbolt Ross shows up later on in Civil War years ago. Other than that, there's no mention. And
I don't even remember who Thunderbolt Ross is.
Okay, well,
it's a good thing you're here.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, you could just straight up lie to me about these movies, and I would believe you.
Thunderbolt Ross is played by William Hurt. Yeah, he's the general, and
obviously,
in comic book lore, he will end up being Red Hulk.
Who could forget about Thunderbolt Ross?
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm done with talking about this film.
Yeah, I'm done talking about this.
It's not bad though. I still give this movie a 7 out of 10.
I would. We haven't gotten to a film I consider out and out bad yet. Next up on the list, still not out and out bad. We've got Avengers Age of Ultron next on the list.
I can see that.
So this is the first Marvel movie that I didn't see in the theater. And it came out while I was in film school, and a bunch of my friends went, and I wasn't able to go for some reason. And when they came back and told me about it, they told me it was horrible. So I actually didn't see this one until pretty relatively late in my Marvel watching. So my expectations were really low, and I ended up enjoying it more than I thought I would, but it's not a very good movie.
What do you not like
and
about
certainly
it?
I don't like Joss Whedon, so that doesn't help. And
oh, really?
I think
You don't like really unrealistic dialogue?
No, I actually
Here, let me give you the
like
worst.
that. I just don't like his version.
I'm going to give you the worst movie ever. Co-written by Joss Whedon and Aaron Sorkin.
Oh,
Imagine the two of them writing a script together. How annoying that would.
You can't write.
I'm sorry, Victor. Continue shitting on this film.
I think it has a lot of. It's kind of maybe one of the ultimate of these movies in that it has a villain who's kind of compelling on the surface, but doesn't seem to do much, and they don't like take into account a lot of things. Like it doesn't feel like any of this stuff really sticks, even though his performance is like above average for a Marvel villain. It doesn't feel like he's actually doing much. And the opening god awful oneer, I almost turned off the movie after that.
The what now? What do you say? You hate him?
The long shot at the very beginning of the movie.
Oh,
that looks horrible and is horrible. I almost turned off the movie.
Were they in the woods area running toward the base?
And they're all on screen together?
Yeah.
I think that shot is fun.
Yeah, they're all
cool.
on screen together.
I think it's a fun shot. Because a lot of these shots that like are kind of cheesy are just like comic panels come to life.
That's what I love about it.
So I give that a little bit of a
That's
pass.
what Ang Lee's Hulk does, and nobody gives it credit for that.
Ang Lee's Hulk sucks is all he does. It just sucks the life out of it.
Ang Lee's Hulk was just like actually making it look like panels.
Yeah, but
like,
he
like
didn't.
it's like I'm going to have these black backgrounds around the screen.
There's a difference between setting it up, the blocking of it. Of a
and by
scene
the way, Ang Lee's Hulk is better than this film also.
Might be true. But there's a difference between setting up the blocking of a scene to look like a comic panel than just to make it physically have the graphics of a comic panel. But with this,
and I think there's a difference between physically blocking a scene and doing the CGI bullshit that is the first 5 minutes of this movie.
I mean, I'm not crazy about this film either. And like you said, I think that James Spader as Ultron is ultimately wasted. And even though this is supposed to have big stakes, it really doesn't feel like the movie has any stakes. Even though you have the first major character death of someone well known. I mean, I'm not taking into account Coulson because Coulson is a comic character, but
wait, who died in Ultron? Who died in Ultron?
Quicksilver.
But here's what I would say about that. I think that as you're saying, the first major death, he's major to comic fans. But I think if you're looking at this as like one continuous narrative, his death is ultimately kind of lackluster and uninteresting. I think Coulson's death has way more impact than
I think so,
Quicksilver's death. This movie is basically really awesome for basically just one scene, and that is the party scene where the Avengers are just hanging out, shooting the shit.
And where they try to lift.
And they try to lift the hammer.
That was pretty great. That's the best.
That's a good scene. Otherwise, I really don't need the rest of this movie. But that one scene is great. It's important because it sets up, like, Civil War.
It is, yes.
But it's, as a movie, like, this is just, like, it's not bad, but it's just, I don't care.
Yeah, I feel like it's also important for Tony's narrative overall. It kind of helps establish him more so as the guy who's willing to do whatever it takes to try to fix things, but a lot of times he messes up. That's the main point. That, and it tries to give Hawkeye an actual plot point. It tries to build some movie around him, but ultimately I don't think anybody really cares.
I like Hawkeye, but it's I think Hawkeye's stuff in the film is fine, actually, but I think just like the overall thing is just like Ultron as a villain just ultimately isn't that interesting. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver just aren't that interesting in this movie.
They don't get to really do anything.
Right. It's, Vision ultimately isn't that interesting other than just like, whoa, he can lift Thor's hammer. He's going to be important, right? Not really.
Nope.
So, yeah, nothing matters but the party is cool.
Yeah, it feels like a consistent theme in this episode is going to be Marvel gambling on the wrong people when it comes to who they think we care about.
Maybe. We're waiting for that Vision solo movie to carry the MCU into Phase 5.
I get what you're saying. You're saying because there's the Hawkeye thread, and then they start to build up Vision. But ultimately, though, this movie is still an Iron Man movie. I mean, he's still kind of the central focus.
And I think that's kind of to its detriment, because I think his arc isn't that great in this film. Like, they're trying. I get what they're trying to do, but it's not working. But I will give them credit of, like, having plans, and then after seeing the response, being like, well, that was a shitty plan. Maybe we should adjust.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what this movie was setting up a bunch. This was really mostly just setting up future films rather than being its own film. And I think everyone could kind of sense that. And so the few moments where it just was doing its own thing, like the party scene, it worked. And then all the other stuff were just it's clearly they're just, let's set this up for the future. It didn't work.
No, it's definitely it's obviously the worst of the Avengers film. If Avengers cartoon was round, it would be like one of the forgettable episodes.
So glad we can agree on that.
Yeah, we ready to stop talking about this movie
I just realized something else? We've only talked about the two movies now. Oh my god, okay, let's go. I'll try to be more concise from now on.
All right, next up on the list, Iron Man 2. It's shitty. Okay, next up after Iron Man 2.
Hang on.
Can I give a brief semi-defense of Iron Man 2?
No, not a defense, no.
All right, so please defend this movie that is literally just a setup for other movies.
No, this is by far the worst movie of all of them.
And also, the thing is, it reminds me of a better movie I could be watching because Mickey Rourke in this movie had the exact same look for The Expendables. And when The Expendables is like a far superior piece of cinema than yours, your movie is shit.
And Mickey Rourke is an amazing actor, and he just doesn't give a shit in this movie, and it comes across like he just doesn't care at all.
Right. I mean, the thing is, like, Mickey Rourke was, like, doing, like, some hot stuff around this time. Like, like The Wrestler was a few years before this.
Yeah, and he comes into it, seems like he obviously took this role for money, because he just does not, he never, at any of the scenes, come across as he's really given much effort. He just kind of phoned it.
But also, I think a lot of that is the directing, too. I think this is, like, a really, How
dare you impugn visionary director Jon Favreau?
Did Favreau do this one, too?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
Look, we all know that Elf is a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah,
we can all agree on that. This film is just lacking that special. I'd say this is one of the ones I'd call bad. I would call this bad.
I would call this one, I still don't think it's in, I wouldn't put this in the red. I would still put it more positive, negative, but it's close. Anyway, what did you want to defend it?
Yeah,
defend it.
Victor, please give us your wrong opinion on this piece of shit movie.
So, my opinion is that this movie, not unlike a huge amount of movies on this list, is about something, but very badly. And I think that to have a superhero movie kind of half-heartedly tackle alcoholism is interesting. I don't think the movie's good.
See, the thing is, as someone who was a fan of the Demon in the Bottle storyline, I thought they just dropped the ball so bad. We're just like, is it about alcoholism or is he just kind of sad?
Yeah, I don't
like they really. I wish they had the balls to just like make it like, no, Tony Stark is drunk and that's a problem.
I always wanted the Iron Man films to go there, and that's what people were expecting because alcoholism is such a big part of his mythos. But I think just the nature of, by this time, Disney was coming into it.
They didn't have the balls to do it.
They didn't want to do it, yeah. They were like, we got to keep this more family-friendly, I feel like. Want to go that far with him.
They didn't have the balls to say balls on their podcasts about Marvel movies. So,
and also, let's talk real quick. How do you guys feel about Don Cheadle taking over for Terrence Howard?
I didn't notice.
Oh, God.
So here's the thing. I think that ultimately, Terrence Howard did a better job with the role. If I'm being, like, completely honest, I know that he's apparently a pain in the ass to work with, and that's why they dropped him. But actually, just looking at the performance, I think he did better with the part.
Well, and I love Don Cheadle. He's so awesome. But I think for the role of Iron Man, for
Rhodey?
War Machine, I think that Terrence Howard would have looked more the part at least. He has more of the build. I mean, he's a larger guy. He's larger. Don Cheadle's just like a small, skinny guy. He just seems kind of awkward every time he's on the show.
I also think he had better chemistry with Robert Downey Jr. in the film. Like, I mean, Don Cheadle, he's a great actor, but I just don't think he did as good of a job with the role. I think he's probably a better human being than Terrence Howard.
Yeah, Don Cheadle seems pretty.
But I'm saying, in terms of, like, if I'm just judging the performance, I don't think he does as good of a job.
It would have been really awesome if Terrence Howard would get to. So that's kind of sad. Happens.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that he was a bit of an asshole.
So for me, it was like, I didn't notice going from 1 to 2 because it was just a long enough time and I didn't like really keep track of that kind of thing at the time. And then going back to Iron Man eventually later, I was like, oh, that is definitely a different guy. And at this point in my life, I don't care how good you are at your job. If you're an asshole, you shouldn't get to do it.
Okay.
I mean, that's a very valid stance to take.
Well,
I tend to disagree in terms of art, in the sense that
nope, I can't anymore.
So here's my
take it.
Well, here's my thing. It's great if I'm not the one working with them.
Yeah,
I can't think of like a director being like horrible to actors anymore. Even like if I'm not acting on it, I don't want that person in charge of anyone.
Well, I don't want them in charge of anyone, but the thing is, I'm still going to enjoy the art and the finished product. So, like, I enjoyed Bohemian Rhapsody
they shouldn't get to do it anymore until they fix themselves.
Yes, no, what I'm saying is, like, they should stop working until they fix themselves, but I'm not going to stop enjoying the work. Like, Gary Glitter is a really shitty human being, but man, he made some good pop singles in the 70s.
Well, I think the deal with Terrence Howard on this was he was for the number 2, he was wanting more money than Robert Downey Jr., and they were like, no. And so he kind of like, he was like holding out for it, and they called his bluff because they were like, we don't need you. And so they just dropped him. Which, I mean, that's what he gets, I guess. I don't know.
That's fair enough. And that's less like maybe what you necessarily hear about Edward Norton. But
yeah, different.
I think that I don't think it would be right to be like, if he was being an asshole, to be like, well, he should have still done it. I like, the people need to stop being assholes.
Any other comments on Iron Man 2 before we move on?
No.
I'm gonna guess the next one's got to be Thor 2.
It is Thor: The Dark World, which I gave 11 points.
Wow.
So towards the middle for me.
Ooh, toward the middle?
Yeah, towards the middle. I don't think this film is nearly as bad as everyone says it is.
It isn't as bad as the first Thor, but it's still not great.
I would say it is better than the first Thor, which I gave 10 points, so I ranked one spot lower than Thor: The Dark World. I think it's fun. I think this is my bias of just being a fan of like Norse mythology in general, and them kind of straying away from the comics to make it feel more like a Norse myth than like the Thor comics, which I always thought were kind of shitty.
Malachi is just a shit villain. Like, he gets no character development. He's just there, and it's just the whole mustache twirling villain thing. And it falls into the trap. Big battle thing at the end. The universe is gonna be destroyed. Blah blah blah. Destroying the Earth thing. It's just kind of like, okay, we've seen this before. So that's what keeps the Dark World from being very exciting.
I think just what works me with this film is that it has good pacing. Like, it has a good ebb and flow of like drama to comedy. I think the performances are very good. I think Tom Hiddleston is great in this. Chris Hemsworth is great. I think. It has a better balance of like the human world stuff with the mythical world stuff. Like, it doesn't feel as disconnected as the first Thor does. And for some reason, I don't know, Malekith, that's his name?
Yeah.
I don't know, he worked for me as a villain in this film as just like I think the guy who directed this directed some Game of Thrones episodes. So it sort of had like the rhythm of a Game of Thrones episode, but as a Marvel movie. And for some reason, that combo worked for me, where like, I didn't, stop the movie like, I can't take this seriously. This is dumb. Like, there wasn't a this is dumb moment in the movie for me. And so because it was consistent, it worked for me across the entire thing.
So this is a movie I actually saw on my birthday. And I only remember one half of one scene. And I think this is another one of those Marvel movies that's sort of half about something, but this one is about how Alan Taylor should stick to TV.
Oh, damn.
Well, this movie is ultimately in the larger mythos too, with the exception of that the ether turns out to be one of the Infinity Stones. I can't remember before now, but other than that, this one doesn't hold that much weight either.
I get that. I guess I'm judging them more on how I view them as individual cinematic experiences than like where they fit into the grand scale of this.
I can do both.
Yeah.
How about that?
There you go. I guess then that's why you're the prime man on this episode, Steve. But I don't know. This is one of the ones where if you're just like, do you want to watch a Marvel movie? If you suggest this one, I'm more likely to say yes.
Weird. And well, in Malachi, like he's played by Christopher Eggleston, I believe is his name, and he's a badass actor as well, and he just never gets to do anything.
That's another theme that's going to be running throughout.
Yeah, well, and that's the biggest thing with these films is that most of the time their villain isn't that strong,
and their guest actors don't get to do a lot. Yeah, this is my lowest rated movie on this list. I, at the time, enjoyed it. I just don't remember hardly anything about it. And that didn't affect my enjoyment of the future movies at all.
Well, here's the plot. Loki's a bad guy, Loki's a good guy, who knows? And then there's some evil stuff that infects Jane Foster. Get it out of her.
Actually, I'll say, you know what? You just sold more of the movie for me because I remembered that a lot of it was about Thor and Loki's relationship and that sibling bond. I thought it was actually very well done. And their scenes together actually have a lot of emotional weight.
Yeah, Thor and Loki, whenever they're having any kind of one-on-one, is the best part of the film.
And I think this movie has a lot of them one-on-one, and that's probably why it works so well for me.
Okay. Let me guess the next one. The next one's got to be Thor, the first one, right?
And the next one is Thor, the first one.
Wow. You're coming back strong on those guesses.
All right. I know... I feel like I can guess the top ones pretty easily and the bottom ones, but the middle is going to be the harder part. But Thor, I do think Dark World expands upon the first one. The thing that I like the most about the first one is the introduction of Asgard, and Hemsworth as Thor is just one of the best castings I think of all the MCU.
Yeah, the fact that they were able to make Thor work. Yeah. Like, there are certain properties on this list, Thor one of them, and another one we'll get to later, where we're just like, how are you going to make that work for modern movie audiences? And they made it work. My big problem with this movie is like the stuff in the middle where he's on Earth all just feels like set up to Avengers movies, and I just don't care. But all the stuff on Asgard, like if you just cut off that middle crap, this is a great movie.
However, the scene where they're in the restaurant and he throws his mug down and breaks it and says, "I'll have another."
No, that's great.
That's the best part of the movie.
That singular scene is why I put it higher than a lot of things, because it has one actually really hilarious scene. Actually, it has a couple. The one where he also wants a dog big enough to ride is pretty great.
Yeah. But also, like, you know, a lot of the stuff where, like that, those early battle sequences, like that battle sequence with the Frost Giants, is a great battle sequence. And I like that sort of, like, mystical Viking edge, which, like, they kind of don't have for the other movies. I think I'm a big Norse mythology guy. And so I think that's just, like, my biases of just, like, thinking that shit is awesome is what helps rank these movies so high for me. Just like, yeah, Viking gods, slay some shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I don't think it. I just watched this one again for the first time in years a couple months ago, and I don't think it holds up as well as it did in my mind. I think we're still kind of figuring things out. I think that the Marvel movies get better.
I mean, yeah, they started to figure out their momentum, and like I said, that middle sequence where just like they bring in Coulson and the other characters, like it kills the movie for me. Like it just comes to a screeching halt, and I hate it. But the parts I love so much that it elevates it above certain other films.
So you didn't like because this is the cameo, the introduction of Hawkeye. You didn't like that scene where he's up there.
It was really forced.
It feels very forced, yes.
Like a lot of this feels forced. And the thing is, like, Thor as in general in Marvel comics, you know, when they try to make Thor like interact with like human characters in the real world outside of the Avengers, it just seems kind of silly. Like him having a secret identity in the comics, like as Dr. Robert Blake or whatever. I'm like, that's fucking dumb. He's Thor. Yeah. Thor doesn't need a secret identity. He's fucking Thor. And I'm glad they dropped that shit for the movie.
I am too. That
like they had a little Easter egg where like he took Robert Blake's lab coat and was pretending to be him in the like when he was doing stealth or whatever. So that was a cool little Easter egg. But yeah, like Thor having a secret identity in the Marvel comics, like all the stuff in Marvel comics where they change the mythology, I thought was stupid. Like I actually don't like Loki in the comics. I think Loki is great in the films.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Thor in the comics, like when he's Thor and not Robert Blake, I think he's fine. Loki in the comics, because he's such a hard ass and just like is just angry all the time and just scowling.
And he doesn't have that
Trickster.
Personality. Yeah, he doesn't have the personality that
like in the movies they figured
movies.
out how to make him like a trickster, but not just like a Joker ripoff. We're just like, they made him a trickster in that he's conniving and always scheming something.
And he's likable somehow.
And likable. And I think that's they were able to make it both like faithful to the original myth and still a representation of how he is in the comics and blend them together in a way that is palatable for modern movie audiences. So that is a great testament to the writing and Tom Hiddleston's performance as Loki. And there's a reason why people keep citing him as one of the best movie villains, because he's great.
Oh, this movie succeeds largely on casting stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Anthony Hopkins as Odin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like
good stuff.
And this one is directed by Kenneth Branagh. I mean, he's a Shakespearean actor and great director in his own right. So I remember being surprised when they got him on board to direct Thor. I don't know that it really feels that. You don't really feel his presence in the film.
I feel his presence except for the stuff in the middle. The stuff in the middle feels like studio notes, but like all the stuff where it's actually just like on Asgard, that feels very much like him.
So I think this is also an interesting case of they got someone who has, and it's not like every Kenneth Branagh movie is good, but it's someone who has kind of this specific thing, and they sand off all of whatever their version of edges is. And I think that is one thing that troubles a lot of people about Marvel movies. And I think if it was like people did a Marvel movie and then went on to do something else and kind of prove that they still had whatever it was that got them the Marvel movie, I think that would be great. Like, I would like to see whatever John Watts does after Spider-Man 3. But, Kenneth Branagh definitely, like, there was no real reason for him to do this. And aside from a couple of scenes in the middle with kind of fantastic stuff, and I'm sure he had some influence in the casting, it's like anybody could have done this. which is I think maybe more not necessarily a problem with this movie alone, but kind of
it's
a
the
thing
studio,
that people get tired of with the Marvel movies.
Well, and understandably though, they're big on, they want everything to tie together, so they're going to have their hand in it, and they're not. It kind of sucks that they're not going to let their director have complete control, but
it
makes sense.
There's a balance to it. I think they ultimately do achieve a decent sense of balance in the sense that, like, you look at the X-Men franchise, for example, which I won't go on for too long, but the thing is, like, that is very much like a hit and a miss franchise, where just some of them are just amazing, brilliant works of art, and then some of them are absolute shit, and that's because they kind of let them do whatever the fuck they want. And when you let people do...
No, it's because they let Bryan Singer do whatever the fuck
Bryan Singer's a mess.
Which is a horrible idea.
I agree.
But,
Bryan Singer.
But hey...
Plus he's a pedophile, so let's not...
Yeah. On top of everything else, Jesus.
He's a bad movie maker and a pedophile.
Well, hey, speaking of bad movies... And next on the list, we have my lowest ranked film in the franchise, Iron Man 3.
Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised. Okay, real quick.
It's not just the Mandarin
I
thing.
hate this movie for the Mandarin. I will always hate this movie for the Mandarin.
So here's my thing with the Mandarin. If you just change that character's name and just, like, give it, like, his birth name in the comics, he automatically becomes way less racist. Just calling the character the Mandarin is what kills it, but just...
Well, here's the thing. You can still call him the Mandarin, and you don't have to make him, look... He doesn't have to have the Fu Manchu and all that crap. I mean...
But the thing is, like, the Mandarin is to Iron Man what the Joker is to Batman. He is his main villain. He is his arch nemesis. They had set him up in previous films with, like, the Ten Rings.
Yeah, I know.
And
everybody's so excited about
with like, the terrorist organization being the Ten Rings and all that stuff. So they had set him up. But I'm taking that out of it for now. That bullshit reveal, which they saw Batman Begins. It was like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a fake out with our villain too, like Batman Begins? But I'm gonna take that out of it. The movie is boring, slow paced. I don't buy Tony's arc in the film. It seems really forced after Avengers. That he's like, man, aliens freak me out. Like, it doesn't seem like that would be his reaction to that. It just feels like a different character's reaction to those events and not his. Him blowing up the suits at the end is dumb. Adrian Killian is just like, you snubbed me at a party one time, so now I'm gonna like form a terrorist organization. Dumb. It's poorly paced. I forget the director's name. Shane Black.
Shane Black, yeah.
This is very much.
How dare you?
This is very much the case of they did let the director have
Shane
total
Black's
control.
a good director.
This movie, it's a very much a Shane Black movie, but a shitty Shane Black movie. We're just like, it's set at Christmas. Like every
it's
Shane
certainly
Black
his
movie is.
worst directed movie.
Like this is.
Well, I guess I haven't seen Predator, so I don't know that for sure.
I haven't either.
But this is bad on basically every level. Robert Downey Jr. gives a good performance. Ben Kingsley also gives a good performance.
Ben
Gwyneth
Kingsley's
Paltrow,
awesome in it, but his role sucks. Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow is always great. Like the actors are doing a good job with awful material. You know, as an Iron Man fan growing up, the Mandarin thing bothered me. What bothered me more than them ripping off Batman Begins in a shitty way was making a shitty movie around them ripping off Batman Begins.
But also, the thing I will stand up for in this movie, disagree with you, is I do like the PTSD arc.
Yeah, so this is another Marvel movie that's sort of half about something, and I think it does it certainly more successfully than Iron Man 2, but still not particularly well. And as someone who couldn't give a fuck about comics, I thought the Mandarin thing was hilarious. It would have been a lot better if he either was replaced with somebody who was not Guy Pearce or was like actually just fucking with him in that moment because he actually got caught because he was being cocky and then came back and was like, it came back and kicked his ass. But like, I think dialogue wise, this movie doesn't make me roll my eyes like a Joss Whedon thing would, I much more respond to Shane Black's version of unrealistic dialogue than Joss Whedon's.
I'm glad you listed now this dialogue is also unrealistic bullshit.
I mean, but Shane Black is amazing. He wrote freaking Lethal Weapon. So I mean, this movie's also not good, but I think it is at least half about something.
Well, and the only reason I'm not even more upset about the Mandarin arc, what they did with it, is because I hate the idea of Ben Kingsley playing the Mandarin anyway, because take this white British guy and make him the Mandarin is already kind of racist in it.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time for Ben Kingsley.
I know. But now what's crazy is, so you say you don't know a lot about the comics, but so Mandarin is kind of...
No, it's not that I don't know. It's that I don't give a shit.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, there's a difference, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say, so in case you didn't know, Mandarin is kind of... He's always been Iron Man's main foe, and he's the guy. And so now they're going to be... the Shang-Chi movie coming out in a couple years is going to have the main villain as the actual Mandarin. You guys knew that, not?
It's called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Yeah.
So I didn't bother looking that up, but that just seemed like, well, that's fucking obvious. And they did that short film, All Hail the King or whatever, where Ben Kingsley revealed, oh, there's a real Mandarin, and I took his name.
And that was all due to the backlash that happened.
Right. Well, here's what I would say. Way to drop the ball by never having Iron Man face the Mandarin.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And because Shang-Chi is a D-level character, now they're going to give him the Mandarin. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. And you know what? I blame 100% of this on Shane Black. Fuck you, Shane Black.
I agree.
This is why you don't give the director total control. That's why you want to homogenize everything, because sometimes you get a shitty movie like Iron Man 3. We're like, but he's Shane Black. He's great. He can't mess up. Oh, he messed up.
Oh, he definitely didn't get total control. This is still a Marvel movie.
No.
Those action scenes look like shit. And I will say, the fact that he makes comic book fans so mad actually makes me want to move this up in my rankings.
Oh, no.
That's fair.
F you.
Here's what I would say. I would rather Kevin Smith direct this movie than Shane Black.
I would take Kevin Smith. No, dude, Kevin Smith would do an amazing... He would make it comic accurate.
Actually, if Kevin Smith did a Marvel movie, it would probably be great because he'd have enough studio notes forcing him to do
change
good cinematography. Yeah. And have a DP that knows what he's doing. But then also the dialogue would actually be comic faithful, have emotion and heart, and be snappy.
Dude, can you imagine if
I think you guys are overestimating Kevin Smith.
No, Kevin Smith.
No, we're saying if he has the right person telling him what to do.
Can you
let
imagine
the right person supervising
him? Can you
him?
imagine if Kevin Smith did a character like Ant-Man or something? That would be an awesome movie. Really?
I don't think you guys want what you have.
Here's what I want: Kevin Smith to direct the Fantastic Four, and think about all the great dick jokes.
Oh, I don't want to do Fantastic Four.
How big can you make Mr. Fantastic?
Yeah.
And then, the thing being like, I'm always hard.
I'll do anyone. Hell yeah.
And then freaking Human Torch, talk about fire crotch, am I right?
Dude, I love this movie.
See?
All right, I'm sold.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You don't even need Kevin Smith. If this is the level that you think Kevin Smith is at, you just do it. You would do a better job than him.
I mean, that's what we'll get Greg hired.
We know that I would do a better job than Kevin Smith, but I'm not getting the gig. So I will hand it off to an underling. You know what? I have mixed feelings on Kevin Smith. I think he has a lot of good ideas. I think he just needs someone to push him to do something better than what he's done before.
Yeah. He has one undeniably great movie.
Dogma?
Clerks.
I think Clerks is great.
Yeah, Clerks is great. I think Dogma's close to being very, very good.
And Tusk?
Tusk is a masterpiece. Speaking of cinematic masterpieces, we've got Captain Marvel next on the list.
Okay.
Ooh,
hey guys, do you know that this movie takes place in the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Are you sure that this... we want to really make sure you know that this is a movie in the 90s. Check out that Smashing Pumpkins poster in the background. Guys, this is the 90s. Hey, Stan Lee is reading a Mallrats script. Did you know that this is in the 90s, you guys? Hey, did you know that we're referencing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Because it's the 90s.
The thing about Captain Marvel is because I want to absolutely just love this movie because the worst kind of people hate this movie. But unfortunately, the movie's just not that good.
Yeah, that is
sucks.
a bummer.
And it sucks. Yeah.
It's absolutely the most normal movie in this entire franchise.
So here's the thing. I actually enjoyed Captain Marvel because it was... I expected to think it's like, oh, this is just kind of poor writing and not very good. I like the Dragon Ball Z fights at the end. Just like the fact that Captain Marvel is a Dragon Ball Z character is kind of awesome. I love Dragon Ball, so that was kind of sweet. And also, I thought that the Skrulls, I thought that was actually them changing the comics for the better and actually having a sincere twist.
I'm kind of irritated by that, but I also liked it because it was an interesting comic.
It's not like the Iron Man 3 twist, which is we did this thing and just made it into something shitty.
Yeah.
This was good because if you were a longtime comics fan and knew the Skrulls, you expect them to be these bad guys.
And I was surprised, yeah.
And then, turn that on its head is a twist, and I think ultimately good, especially just, in the modern market, to just assume, here's a race of different colored people who are evil. I think Disney changing that is ultimately a good thing in the long run. I think
that's why they did it, yeah.
But I think it was both a clever twist and also a societal good. And, look, man, them Dragon Ball Z fights, pretty sick.
Well, the thing about the movie where I'm kind of where I put it sort of in my middle-ish ground is because it's an intro film. It's on par with, First Avenger or a lot of these movies where it doesn't do anything amazing, and that's why I have a lot of hope for the sequel to Captain Marvel, because now you're more familiar with her. And she is kind of wooden in the role, which I also understand, because the idea is she's not supposed to tap into her emotion.
I think she actually gives a pretty good performance.
To me, she comes across much better in Endgame.
I actually disagree. I think she comes across better in this.
I would fully disagree.
Wait, so are you...
I can't imagine being excited for a Captain Marvel sequel just because, nobody can kill her, and because they're not going to do a good job with, oh, but what's her personal life like?
This character is all about just, kick-ass Dragon Ball Z fights, so if they just get her a kick-ass Dragon Ball Z kind of villain to fight, it's just going to be flying through the air, laser beams, and just explosions. That's going to be fucking sick. So just on the primal stupid level, I love this character.
Did you watch Man of Steel?
I have not gone around to Man of Steel. I need to watch
Man of Steel has about 45 minutes of that, and it is exhausting.
It is. It's terrible. It's when you just see
I did love Batman v Superman.
Explosions, destruction after too much, just blah. And I agree with you. They've turned Captain Marvel into Superman. She's so overpowered now. What's the point? Is anything going to be a threat? You lose that connection to the character because they're so not human now.
Yeah, and it would be different if I had the confidence that, like in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, there was going to be the conflict of her not having time to do both. But it kind of seems like, because like in those, it's like he wants to be Spider-Man, but he also wants to be a good nephew, and he also wants to be a good boyfriend, and he just can't do all of them. And that's where the conflict is, not necessarily life or death.
And here,
I don't think Marvel has like what it takes to pull that off.
I think they do, but right now her character's been set up that she doesn't really care about her personal life. It's just about what she. I mean, there hasn't been much to it.
Yeah, I'm sort of interested to see where they take the character, because the thing is, like, I'm a guy who has in the past been annoyed with Superman for his poor writing and how it's just like, man, he has sick powers and like is basically unstoppable. That's not a good character. And for some reason, Captain Marvel works for me. So I don't know why. Maybe it's just because. I think because, like, it just seems so stupid. That's why it's awesome. Like, people try to argue, like, nah, man, Superman's actually really deep when you look at it. Like, I don't really know. But I think because this is just, like, pure stupidity is why I love it. Like, there's a part of me that almost ranked it higher, but, like, no, it's not better than any of those other movies where I would have ranked it. But I had fun.
I mean, it is a fun movie, but also on terms of just strictly this movie alone and not just the character portrayal, Samuel L. Jackson's good in the movie. He's always fun. I wasn't crazy about what they did with the Flurkin and how he lost his eye. And I mean, I thought it was a cool.
I liked that because I thought that was such a great troll. Like,
it was so yeah.
The thing is, like, you know that the way that we were upset about the Mandarin.
Yeah.
This is like, I think, a thing that's like upsetting to comics fans, but I actually really appreciate because it's like, yeah, that's something you shouldn't care about.
Because you think he's going to lose his eye in some badass.
Right. It's like, no, he just got his eye, like, you know, clawed out by, like, a cat monster. Like, to me, that's funny, and it's not ruining a character the way that the Mandarin was ruined in Iron Man 3. Like, I think it's just, like, it's a fun little thing. Like, this is just a goofy, fun movie that I don't take seriously at all and just have a great time watching.
They certainly put as much thought into that specific detail as they did into his name.
Nick Fury.
Oh. I agree. This is sort of just kind of a silly, fun movie. However, you get the moments where, you know, they were trying to, they're trying to make a statement a little bit, but they don't fully go on with it. There's a scene where he sees the biker, and then there's a scene toward the end where, you know, it shows a flashback to a kid falling down the bike, and it's saying, hey, you're a woman, just because you've been told you can't do this, you actually can do it. But I didn't feel like the movie completely convinced to that. I would have actually liked to see it go a little bit further because it starts to have a little serious tinge to it, but then it gets like swallowed up by the silliness of the rest of it.
You know, I think that ultimately, the way I look at it is like, it's about time that girls had their big, dumb superhero movie too. We're just like, it's not actually that great of a movie, but damn it, is it fun. So it's about time that women got their big, dumb movie too, where, you know, they had like their legitimately good movie with Wonder Woman. And here they're just like, here's just one that's kind of dumb, but at least passable.
Yeah, I think you're exactly on about that. And it does have like kind of the surface level, like actually good message for people to hear. Like, just because you're a woman and people doubt you doesn't mean you can't do something, and join the Air Force.
Right.
Jeez, oh god. Oh no. Okay.
So yeah, let's ready to move on?
Yeah.
Alright, so next up on the list, I ranked this third from the bottom because
let me guess. Can I guess?
Yeah.
I have a guess as well.
Okay, you go first.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
My guess is either that or Guardians 2.
No, Thor Ragnarok. And that's in the list.
Oh, okay.
My least favorite of the Thor movies by a wide margin.
And that's very shocking because that's most people's, well, they're like top 5 of all Marvel.
In terms of a movie just like being clearly different ideas mashed together haphazardly with no concern as to whether or not the finished product is good, that is absolutely Thor Ragnarok. Jack Kirby. He's the guy who does all the cosmic stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like this is based off like Kirby's style.
Yeah, it's very much.
I am not into his art style. I'm not into his space stuff. I think like a lot of Kirby's ideas I just don't like in general. I think they're goofy and don't work for me. And so this movie is like half like, here's a serious Thor drama we were like setting up towards. But also, I guess people didn't like the other Thor movies, so we're just gonna like have him hang out with Jeff Goldblum for half the movie instead. Jeff Goldblum is great. I don't think that Tessa Thompson... I don't buy the writing of her character. I think she plays the part very well, but I think the writing for her character, Valkyrie, is shit.
Because she's goofy. I mean, she's an alcoholic,
but like, so here's I'm going to give you the example of like the piss poor writing is she comes out of the ship and takes a swig of the drink and then falls off the ship. I don't buy that. That just is terrible directing. It doesn't seem like realistic what that character would do, and it doesn't like fit even within slapstick. It's just bad. This movie is just not very good. I think the stuff with Loki is great. The stuff with Jeff Goldblum is great, and I think the stuff with Hela, I think she's great. So I think like the sibling stuff and all the dramatic stuff works, and Jeff Goldblum works. But the rest of the movie doesn't work. Well, including Hulk.
Well, I want to make a comment because I want to defend this movie, but I also want to trash this movie because, like you said, I'm very torn on it because if you take this movie as strictly a kid's goofy comedy, it's amazing. It's a very funny, fun movie. But it's such a weird time to do this film because this is supposed to be Ragnarok. It's supposed to be the most serious thing that could happen to Asgard. Right. Asgard is being destroyed.
Ragnarok
and we're
means
making
apocalypse
jokes about it the whole time. Yeah,
Ragnarok is the apocalypse of Norse mythology. So this is essentially Thor apocalypse.
Yeah, it's Thor. Your whole life is completely destroyed. Oh yeah, but here's jokes with this dude they are on.
Look, that character is great. I forget the character's name. So yeah, Korg. But it's just like it's two different movies.
It is,
and I think the dramatic movie is the better movie of the two, if I'm being completely honest.
You also said you like Hela. Now, all Hela scenes take place kind of within this dramatic arc.
Yes.
And then that is a huge
movie.
Yeah, and that's a huge contrast to...
completely different green screens from everybody else.
How do you pronounce the name? Waititi?
Taika Waititi.
And I've watched a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff on this film, and so much of the dialogue is improv, and that shows... But it shows how good Chris Hemsworth is, and it shows that he really shines into the comedic elements. But it is so confusing because of the film that it takes place in.
Yeah, I think ultimately, this film is overrated by fans, where they hated the other Thor movies so much they were happy that they just did a comedy instead.
And it's also a buddy comedy. It's also a buddy cop film at the same time with Hulk and Thor, and that's a weird another thing going on. There's so many different things going on.
Shane Black, right?
Yeah, maybe if Shane Black directed this, this actually probably would have been a much better movie.
It would have had.
I think you're not wrong.
I think so
awesome.
too.
I think he directed the wrong Marvel movie. Taika Waititi should have done Iron Man 3 and just made it into like a goofy comedy.
God, we should fix this.
And then this should have been directed by Shane Black, where it would have been a really dark, dramatic movie, but then it also would have been like buddy cop with Thor and the Hulk.
Yeah, it would have been a dark comedy. I think you guys are
too old for this shit.
I think, this movie is not good, but the reason I put it as high as I did is because it has
you're full of shit.
It has a lot more really great scenes than most of the other movies on this list. And I like a lot of the comedy falls flat, but it does have Jeff Goldblum, and it lets him Jeff Goldblum quite a bit.
Yeah, which is always good, always terrific.
I mean,
so I'm willing to give it a lot of credit for that.
I think that's what a lot of people do, and I think that's why it ranks so highly. It's just like, it has Jeff Goldblum in it. I have to like it.
No, dude, I don't think the comedy falls flat at all. I think most of the comedy hits. Where I'm torn on it, and where I've ranked it around on this spot is because I think it's a good film, but as a comic fan, I kind of hate it. Because of what
I wouldn't even say it's a good film.
Because
no, it's not.
Because here's what they did: they turned Thor. And if you're familiar at all with the comics, the comics also have Hercules in it, and Hercules is very much who they turn Thor into personality-wise in this movie. So now, if they ever bring Hercules into the MCU, I don't know how they'll pull it off because he's basically who Thor is now. So I didn't like the character switch.
Hercules is basically box office poison at this point because there's been like 3 Hercules movies in the last 10 years, and no, you can't name them, even though they're all called Hercules.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I know the Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great if they cast Dwayne The Rock Johnson as Hercules in the MCU?
Yeah, I think they should.
Something else. Him and Chris Hemsworth would be great together, I'm sure.
Actually,
Kevin Sorbo.
Actually, if the next Thor movie is called Thor and Hercules, and it's Chris Hemsworth and Dwayne The Rock Johnson...
And Shane Black.
And Shane Black. You just made that movie shitty.
But actually, the next Thor movie is Thor: Love and Thunder.
No, Shane Black's in it.
Yeah, fine.
He's in Predator. He's great in Predator.
But yeah, the next Thor movie is going to be Thor: Love and Thunder, and that's right up on that. Yeah.
Honestly, this next phase of Marvel movies seems like such a shit show. I'm going to be impressed if they pull it off. Like, we have Shang-Chi. And
Shang-Chi, the
Eternals, Thor, Love and Thunder. Like, oh, geez, look at all these home runs you got set up.
I am pretty stoked about Mahershala Ali as Blade, though.
I'm actually not that stoked about that. The one I'm the most looking forward to is Shang-Chi, actually. And that's, actually, and the Eternals, just because I feel like, I don't know, I like Game of Thrones actors, so it'll be fun to see them getting work.
Yeah.
For me, the last couple were such a clean break that I'm pretty ready to just be done with these movies. Also, the Disney Corporation does not deserve your support.
I mean, it's true, but I'm still going to go see Frozen 2 opening night.
And
I know you are.
And I'll go see Shang-Chi opening night, too.
You and the entire Earth are, and I'll be at home just being mad.
Well, that's how you want to live. All right.
It is. It is how I want to live.
All right, so I think we only have 20 movies left, so shall we keep going?
No. I think most people, if anybody actually listens to this, they'll be upset that we put Ragnarok so low.
Yeah, it will. And, as far as the Disney Corporation, just touching upon that now, I remember in, like, the late 90s, there was a big pushback against Disney, and, like, people actually just, like, acknowledging what a terrible, evil corporation they are. And then Kingdom Hearts came out, and then a lot of people just, like, started giving them a pass.
And, yeah, I'm a complete victim of that myself. But, like, you gotta try.
But
you gotta not see Disney movies when you can avoid it. You gotta not use Amazon when you can avoid it.
But what I would say is that they have you in this this catch-22 where like you want to enjoy the good art that they produce, and Disney has produced some amazing, brilliant works of art. Some of the best films of all time have been Disney films.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, if I, as a creator, get the opportunity to make a Disney film, you can bet your sweet ass I'm going to take that gig. So I'm going to support the creators and understand that, part of my dollars is supporting a corporation. I don't like what they do, but the life-changing aspect of the art is worth it to me, where, like, any way I spend my money is going to support some asshole, pretty much. Like, if I go to the grocery store that I can afford to shop at, I am probably, unfortunately, contributing to slave labor. And so you just have to try to find a balance to the efficacy of where you spend your dollars. So I might not buy, every piece of Disney merchandise that comes out because I don't want to support slave labor, but I might enjoy the films and buy the DVD. And so it's about finding that balance and like what you think is ethical to do. And it's difficult. It is admittedly very difficult.
You guys are going to love the fact that 1 week from today I'm going to be there.
Disney World's really fun.
Disney World is a
Dole Whips.
Is a
Get
fine
all the
product.
Dole Whips.
Disney World is a fine product. I don't actually know anything about how people are treated there, but
the staff is very underpaid.
Yeah, I hear that they're not paid.
Some of them live in their cars because they can't afford to live.
Okay, that's not good.
So yes,
You shouldn't.
But also they've got fucking Dole Whips and turkey legs as far as the eye can see. Do you know how hard it is to find a Dole Whip outside of Disneyland? Nigh impossible.
All right, so the next movie is he thinks Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I think Guardians 2.
So next up on the list is Guardians Volume 2, which hot take Troyan, I think is better than Guardians 1.
No, wrong.
By a wide margin.
Right. Get out of here. You're done. No.
I think the arcs and the pacing of the film are better. I think it's funnier. And also it has my boy Sly Stallone. So, but no, I think Kurt Russell is amazing in this movie.
Dude, the comedy in this one falls flat.
I think this is way funnier than the first one.
You've got the only thing you really you've got the
Wait, hold on.
Yondu's character, and then the Mary Poppins thing at the end. That's like the redeeming quality of this movie. Is Yondu.
Like the David Hasselhoff bit was hilarious.
I don't remember the David Hasselhoff bit.
We're just like Star-Lord kept telling people David Hasselhoff was his dad.
Yeah.
And then Kurt Russell at one point transforms into David Hasselhoff.
I do remember that.
But
that is funny.
I really think like the comedy for me really works well in this movie, and just like at this point the characters are just playing off each other more, where they don't have to introduce themselves, so it's a lot more just snappy dialogue. I think that opening sequence with Mr. Blue Sky is fantastic. Got Baby Groot dancing to Electric Light Orchestra. Like, what's not to love? I think it's a great standalone. It has like nothing to do with what else is going on in the MCU. But I think that's kind of always been the thing about the Guardians, is just like, they're these weird assholes out in space not affecting anything else, and you shouldn't care about them. And that's why I like it. It's a dumb standalone adventure. But I think Star-Lord's arc is really great in this film. I think Yondu's arc is really great. So like there's legit good character arcs. And I think the way that they play off each other, where like they've known each other for a while at this point, and instead of introducing themselves so much, like they have a rapport, and I think that rapport works really well for me.
I don't think this movie does Drax justice.
I don't, yeah.
And I think this is another movie on this list. I rank this pretty middling, and I think it's like, not unlike Wonder Woman, it's 2/3 of a pretty good, well, Wonder Woman is 2/3 of a great movie and 1/3 of a complete shit show. But this is like 2/3 of a above average Marvel movie and then a kind of bad ending. But it does have a couple of really great scenes, like the Mary Poppins thing, and him explaining Brandy. It was pretty great.
That scene is great. First of all, I've loved that song for years. So just like an extended conversation about Brandy, you're a fine girl, and like a major Hollywood masterpiece. Like I know the drummer from that track. Like, so like that, it makes me think like, man, what did he think when he saw this movie? Like that's pretty cool.
I just love the general statement of, it is one of the finest, one of the finest compositions ever written. It's just a very funny thing to say about any song.
But also, when you think about Brandy, you're a fine girl, you're like, but he's right, damn it.
Yeah, he's not wrong. But I think, like, this is another movie that's sort of half about something, and it just doesn't stick the landing for me. But I think it's mostly, like, it's pretty good and has a decent hit to miss ratio on the comedy.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy family film, and it's all right. Not great.
No, this one completely works for me. I think this is one of my favorites. Hot Take Troyan.
He's here.
Well, speaking of Hot Take Troyan, next up on the list is one of the films I ranked towards the top. We have Ant-Man and the Wasp next on the list.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, the best part of it is what they do for the Wasp. They actually make her... They give her... art.
So I thought this movie was freaking hilarious. I loved the jokes. Lots of jokes in this movie. The jokes work.
No villain, though. There's no villain here.
So?
Yeah.
You know what they make up for? There's jokes instead of a villain. What are Marvel movies bad at? Villains. What are they good at? Jokes, sometimes.
That's fair enough. I think, I remember this movie being very funny, but when I was doing my ranking, I initially had it actually a bit higher than I do now. And I kind of just moved it down because I was going off my method of, well, is there a great scene in this movie? And I don't know if this one has one. Except for when he's possessed by the spirit of Michelle Pfeiffer.
No, I would say them shrinking down and rescuing Michelle Pfeiffer. I think that's a great sequence. I think the big, action chase sequence is actually a really fun set piece.
Where he grows really large.
I think that's one of the best set pieces in the entire MCU. Where look, this is a fun movie. A lot of these movies, as I'm realizing that I'm talking about them, I don't think they're great cinematic masterpieces, but I think they're fun, so I'm ranking them on how fun they are. This one's great. Like, the entire, scene where him and Lawrence Fishburne are talking shop about how big they can get.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
How huge did you get? This big. Whoa, man, that's huge.
This is
that's great.
Well, and this is another movie that works because of the power of its cast, too, I believe. I mean, Paul Rudd is amazing.
Yeah, Paul Rudd is great, and people, shit on the Ant-Man movies so much when just, they're fun comedies.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why they stick them, after really heavy Avengers movies, because they know you need, a light palate cleanser, and that's why they're great.
I give you that, yeah. I agree.
But Lawrence Fishburne is great. I think the arc of Ghost is something that makes you conflicted as an audience member, and so you don't want Ghost to die.
Yeah.
And so I think
But you're also like, why did they cast a completely nothing person to play this role?
What do you mean?
She is absolutely like, and I don't think it's the actress's fault.
Yeah,
I think it's like completely a nothing character.
Yeah, she doesn't get to ever act, really.
Yeah, I'd say there's a bit of a flaw in that, but I think that the rest of the movie works so well where if they don't give Ghost a lot of dialogue, they make up for it in the other ways. And so I would say, yeah, dare I say great film?
Also,
that would be a dare, I guess.
Also, I guess we're supposed to just assume, since at the end of the film, they're going, he's going to go into the quantum realm to try to figure out a way to help her. Then everything from Infinity War and Endgame happens like 5 years in the future. So I guess we're just supposed to assume that Ghost just dies because she doesn't need help.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, if you think about that, she's pretty much fucked. She's dead.
Yeah, so Ghost is dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's okay because, he was great in Enter the Matrix.
That's true.
That's a joke that went over my head.
It's okay. That was for the target audience of Victor.
We're talking about real movies now.
We're talking about real video games based off real movies.
All right, sorry.
Because what I think of a really great idea is to make sure that, like, an outdated medium that is the PS2 video game is essential to understand in my film franchise.
I agree.
That's a great way to tell a story. So yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Any other comments on Lawrence Fishburne before we move on?
No.
Lawrence Fishburne gets like okay representation in that movie. Walton Goggins is highly underserved.
He's always
criminally underserved.
You guys didn't talk about Evangeline Lilly at all, and I really do. Like I said, I really like her arc here, and I like the fact that she has more to do, and I like her as the Wasp. I hope that she has more of a role to play in the future. The fact that she didn't get to be in Infinity War and she didn't get to be in Endgame until the very end kind of sucked, but I hope they do more.
Man, she's fine.
Yeah, I think this is another one of these movies where it's like, I don't know if this movie is particularly good, but like most of the movies on this list, it is an enjoyable watch.
I feel like most Marvel fans are probably hating this podcast because we're just like,
I know.
It's fine. We're like, oh yeah, this is kind of shitty.
No, I like this movie. At this point on, everything up is probably going to be like at least an 8.
All right, well, let's test that. What do you think is next on the list, Steve? You've been kind of hot with your guessing so far.
I think next is going to be Captain America: First Avenger.
Incorrect. Victor, do you want to guess?
Next is going to be Doctor Strange.
Oh, very wrong. Next up on the list, we have Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh,
damn it! That was my second guess.
Damn,
you fucked up, Victor.
You did.
No. I switched myself from that to stupid Doctor Strange.
Okay, so let's just get it out of the way. Michael Keaton is great. He's the best part of this movie.
Yes, he's always
Absolutely.
He's going to be the best part of any movie ever.
That's true. Like, you watch The Founder and just like, yeah, man, you make me hate McDonald's, but also I want McDonald's. Sell it to me.
Yeah, I really loved him in that movie, The Founder. Yeah.
Well, all right, so Michael Keaton, great across the board.
Always.
We acknowledge this. But when, we're talking about like how shitty Marvel villains are, and then how great he is in this, we're just like, he is just masterful.
And the Vulture shouldn't be one of the best villains in the Marvel universe.
But he just is, because it's Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Like, his arc is, we'll get to Peter Parker later because he doesn't fucking matter. But his arc as being less like a pissed off blue collar worker screwed over by the man, and then just like turn into a life of crime. As the average American struggles economically, you're just like, yeah, fuck yeah, Vulture's right. Steal some alien shit.
Yeah.
And the twist of him being the dad of the girl that Peter's interested in, and just like that car ride sequence is
so goddamn good.
It's masterful. And then just the fact that he does both like the I'm the dad talk and I'm the supervillain talk at the same time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Marissa Tomei, hot.
Oh my god.
Hot Aunt May. God damn, if I was Tony Stark, I'd be like, hey, Aunt May, want to hang out? Shit. I'm happily married. But
and so was Tony Stark at the time.
That's true. Well, not married, but
not married, but so here's the thing. I don't think Tom Holland is a great Spider-Man.
I think he's all right.
I think he's fine, but the thing is, he doesn't capture the essence of the character. I think he does a good job with the character that the films have set up, but he isn't what Spider-Man is in the comics.
Well, the Spider-Man of the MCU isn't there yet. He's not
right.
the Spider-Man of the comics.
But the thing is, like, the Spider-Man of the comics is the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, which is like a dude in his early 20s who is struggling to balance his superhero life with being a broke-ass photographer living in New York City.
Eventually, yeah, but he starts out as the high school.
But I think I don't feel like the emotional depth from him, where, like, this doesn't seem like a kid who's, feeling guilt over Uncle Ben's death. Like, he just feels like a high school kid just trying to be in high school. And so he doesn't have that layer of darkness that Spider-Man always has.
Yeah, that would be he's a little happy-go-lucky.
He's a little happy-go-lucky, and very much just like, Spider-Boy, I'm a sidekick to Tony Stark.
And that's what the films have done with him.
And I get why they're doing that, but it doesn't work for me as a longtime Spider-Man fan who thinks Spider-Man is one of the greatest superheroes of all time.
And Spider-Man is probably my favorite character that exists in the world. So this is a huge deal to me. And like you said, I haven't been as crazy about the portrayal of him in the MCU because he has been a glorified sidekick. But I feel like they're getting to that point. And we can get into the whole Sony thing, all that stuff later. But if they had if the MCU could use him as many movies as they want to, I think they would absolutely get to where he needs to be. The character arc is growing slowly, which I do like, but taking it in just this one film as it is, the part they've written for him, Holland does it.
Yeah, he does a good job with it. I think it's more just an issue I have with the writing.
I think this is straight up a Marvel Cinematic Universe issue.
Yes. It's just it's not as interesting for the individual character. It's him fitting into the universe, and I think they made Spider-Man less interesting by making him fit into the MCU, which I think is unfortunate. But thankfully, at least Vulture was fucking awesome in this movie.
Yeah, I think the Spider-Man movies in this franchise, I think the Spider-Man subset of this franchise is the best cast overall.
I could see that, and I wonder how much of that decision is, Sony's, as opposed to Marvel's. Are like, no, we're not going to have a shit villain. We're bringing in Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
are you nuts?
It's interesting to think about.
I don't think it's Sony at all. I give them zero credit.
Yeah, but they did.
Wait, you're saying you didn't love Venom?
They did also make the best superhero movie of all time, and they made Venom.
So
they made
you're saying they made Venom?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. No, they made Spider-Man 2, which I will stand behind as the best superhero movie still.
It's one of my favorites, but definitely not the best.
I'm not that into Spider-Man 2.
I like Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 1 was better. I think Doc Ock ultimately was kind of poorly written in Spider-Man 2.
You are out of your mind. Get out of here.
The robot tentacles are controlling my mind.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's Sam Raimi. It's like, have you seen Darkman?
Look, I don't think Sam Raimi's particularly great.
I love Sam Raimi.
Oh, this I don't want to hear.
No, he's
I think he's remarkably fine.
But
I mean, the Evil Dead movies are fun.
This is Hot Take Troy.
Yeah,
this is Hot Take Troy coming in hot.
Get him out.
Drag Me to Hell was cool.
Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's.
I think Sam Raimi's ultimately very much hit or miss, and then I think Spider-Man 2 was remarkably in the middle of hitting or missing. And just like, I'd rather this be awful like Spider-Man 3 or great like Spider-Man 1. But back to this Spider-Man.
Within the MCU, it sucks that all this stuff is happening with Sony because I would absolutely love to see the MCU's version of Norman Osborn.
They sorted it out, right?
And do Green Goblin. Yes, well, Spider-Man's gonna have one more standalone movie in the MCU and he can be in one more ensemble film. That's it. They're not gonna be able to use, like, his Rogues Gallery, which is... Spider-Man has the best Rogues Gallery of any character besides Batman. He just any superhero. You are actually correct about that, and I was expecting to disagree with you, but then you added, aside from Batman, like, oh shit, he gave the best answer. That is correct. That's kind of noted. Spider-Man has amazing villains, and Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, if somebody wouldn't fuck him up for a third time, would be amazing.
Which way? Are you saying that Willem Dafoe fucked him up?
He didn't fuck him up. Sam Raimi fucked him up.
No.
Yes.
I disagree. I think, that Green Goblin in Spider-Man 1 is great.
No,
and
the costume is appalling.
Okay, so the costume's a little bit bad, but I think, the writing is so stinking good.
I like Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. I would love to see Willem Dafoe come back and play Norman Osborn in MCU. I think that could be amazing.
Yeah, I know. I think Willem Dafoe was amazing in those movies as Green Goblin. And, like, the outfit, I understand why they did it at the time, and why it seemed like the best idea they could come up with. But, yeah, I think Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin is one of the all-time great comic book movie villains. Hot take!
Well,
but, yeah, it's showing how memorable this movie is, aside from Michael Keaton, if we keep talking about other Spider-Man movies.
But I want to see I would love to see Doc Ock in the MCU, too. So, let me guess what's next, then. First Avengers gotta be next.
First Ant-Man.
You are correct, sort of. The first Avengers is next.
You're kidding me.
Someone on this panel is a spoiler and only gave it 4 points.
I wonder who that might be.
What jerk would only give it 4 points? So I gave it 21 points. So by process of elimination, Steve, have you figured out who the spoiler is?
I think I figured it out. What the hell is wrong with you, dude? No, this is where people have been. Because this would have been like most people's number 1 or 2, I think.
So I'll let you guys go unless you want me to go first.
I kind of want you to go first.
You might as well just go ahead and get the bullshit out of the way.
Explain your terrible opinion.
So, one thing about Marvel movies, that this was kind of the first one I experienced.
Oh, wait, Josh Whedon, never mind, guys.
Yeah, you can't just use that as a crutch, though.
No, it's not.
At first, we didn't even let him speak, but then I just, I inserted his opinion into his mouth.
All right. Let him talk.
So, this movie, when I saw it in the theater, when Hulk says, "That's my secret cap, I'm always angry," and punched that thing in the face, I stood up because I was so excited. That's how good I thought the movie was. Then, later that year, I tried to watch it again at home and got about 20 minutes in and turned it off. I couldn't stand it anymore. So and there are a few other movies on this list that suffer specifically because I tried to watch them again.
So, wait, so you're saying just because you're bipolar and you can't make up your mind what you want, you're going to rank it low? I don't understand.
Because I watched it again, as a different person. And I'm that person now who doesn't like Marvel's The Avengers.
Yeah, but why? I don't get it.
I think I kind of get it, where this might be the thing that's fun to... I'm going to put words into your mouth and you can tell me whether or not I'm correct.
It sounds like you're on the right track.
Yeah, it's fun to experience
It's fun to experience in the theater, when it's out with a big crowd, with friends, when you've been having this build-up to, shared universe. Oh, man, it's the first time they've teamed up on screen. You haven't seen anything like it before. There hasn't been a franchise that has done something like this before. And so the first time experiencing that, and you're with a crowd full of people who are just excited that just the fact that it fucking exists, and you're cheering and you're hollering and you're having a great time, and then you go back and watch, you know what, there wasn't much movie here, actually, is kind of what I am feeling your stance on it is.
That is exactly it.
Yeah.
And I think the one situation I could imagine me being excited to watch this again is if, God forbid, at some point I have a kid and I'm like, you know what? The Marvel movies were big for me growing up. Let's watch these goddamn Marvel movies. And I think watching a kid watch this movie would be very exciting, but I'm just not a kid anymore and it does not work for me at all. All of the setup to that stuff is really hard for me to get through.
So,
although I will say there is the great scene of puny human or puny man or whatever he says. That was really cool.
Puny God.
Puny God. Good stuff.
So I will say there is a superhero movie. There have been a few superhero movies where I've stood up and cheered at action set pieces. One of them most notably being X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Jesus.
Man, when Sabretooth came...
Don't like stupid stuff?
No, I do like stupid stuff. That's it's fucking great.
What was it that you were saying was... Never mind. My brain's too fogged up to call you on anything.
No, when he is fighting Deadpool at the end, who has had his mouth sewn shut because that's what you want from Deadpool, is him unable to speak.
Yeah.
When you have Wolverine's fighting Deadpool at the end, is Deadpool shooting eye lasers because that's one of the standard powers.
Yeah, naturally.
When he's fighting Deadpool at the end...
Eye lasers.
And it's just a video game boss battle. And then Sabretooth shows up to help his brother. I'm like, fuck yeah. So,
anyway, can we not talk about X-Men Origins Wolverine?
I mean, that's true. It would have ranked number 1 on the list if it were an MCU film.
Better than any of these stupid.
So the Avengers also has an awesome villain because they used Loki again.
That's fair enough.
It's also.
I will say that is a little bit of a problem with it, where like if he was easy enough for Thor to solo, the fact that it needed like the rest of them to team up to fight him this time.
He's got a big army now, though, so you know.
But I think that part of it is kind of hilarious. I mean, like, remember this guy that Thor beat by himself in this last movie? What if he had help from like 6 other dudes? Would he be able to stop him this time also? Turns out the answer is yes.
Yeah, well, it's like 6,000 other dudes. So I mean, but the thing about that is it is weird because that is also one of the thing that's so cool about this movie is, like you said, it's the first time it's ever happened. It's the first time you've ever introduced characters in standalone movies and put them together. It's also one of the first times I can recall where you took a villain that's already been a villain and you're like, hey, guess who's the villain? The same dude again. And so that is kind of unique. And it is weird. You would think that they would want to go for somebody else, but it also harkens back to the comics because the very first villain that the Avengers fought in their comic was Loki. So that's the reason for it. You got the introduction of you got more power with the Tesseract. And it's got this comedy element in it. You've got the teamwork. You've got them trying to figure out how to work together. There's a lot of funny give and takes there. You've got the for your first time, you've got Captain America saying things because now he's not in the 40s anymore. Now he's in modern age.
The only MCU drop on our show. I understood that reference.
Okay, yeah. And those are funny moments. And
that man is playing Galaga.
Yes. And honestly, Whedon is kind of the perfect guy for this film because Whedon is able to bring those comedic elements to it, and he's able to bring a little bit of the lightheartedness, which the first few films, they have serious moments, they also have lighthearted moments. And it just works in general, and it's a lot of fun, and you don't take it too seriously.
Here's what I'll say. I think you're right when you say that Whedon was the right person to do this movie, and I certainly felt that at the time. And I think it speaks more to how I react to it than anything necessarily wrong with him, especially since Joss Whedon did write one of my favorite movies, which is Speed. He did a pretty obvious rewrite on it. So I'm not like completely against his thing, but it's like it really grates on me in most of the movies that I see him write. And I think this movie lacks a lot of movie things that I kind of expect sitting down to watch something, but it does, I guess, deliver on a lot of what comic book fans were wanting, and I think that's fine. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I would say that's valid. I think there's a lot of good things to like about this movie, like the boom that the shawarma industry received after this film.
That was great too. Yeah,
that was fantastic. I'm a big Captain America guy, and so he got kind of nerfed on in this movie, and got treated like shit, unfortunately. But man, just Captain America solo fighting Loki just made me feel patriotic. All kinds of American. I'm just like going to a foreign land and punching some pasty white dude. I don't know. It just felt very American. But yeah, it's what I would say is it's a fun movie, and I think is especially I think the fact that it was such a unique cinematic experience is why I had to rank it relatively high on the list, where it might not be the one I go to rewatch the most, but I think the fact that I can't think of another movie that has made me feel the way the first Avengers did, and I think that alone makes it a special film, where even if it doesn't necessarily age as well, that is something that, it's a title that no other film can take, and I think that does make it magical.
I think, honestly, it would have been higher on my list if I hadn't watched it again. And that's just absolutely the case. And I don't know what to say about that other than that it's true.
And, I have the advantage of having not watched it recently, so maybe that's helping it.
I've seen it like 3 times, so yeah, it's not as good as the first time.
But, I think Scarlett Johansson is actually pretty good in this movie. I'd say she's one of the highlights of the film. Just, I don't know. I think it's solid all around and fun. I give it a thumbs up. This, and also I have a little bit of nostalgia for this movie because I saw it a couple times in theaters. One of the times I saw it with the full lineup of Lipstick at the time. This was pre-Steve joining the band. And that was back in the time where Lipstick was like the Beatles, where we did everything together as a band. We'd go to the movies together, we'd go out to eat, and we were just a really tightly knit unit. And, then people were assholes and everything fell apart. But at the time, when the band was like a family, that was a cool experience. And, then like a family, we broke up and did Captain America Civil War down the line. But at the time, we were all united watching the Avengers.
That's nice. I like that.
Beautiful.
All right, so next up on
Captain America First Avenger.
No.
Damn it.
Let me guess. Civil War.
Incorrect. Next up on the list, we have Black Panther.
What?
Oh. I know who the spoiler is.
Yeah, he's gonna be you. Craig, you're an idiot. Sorry. Black Panther for me is, I think it was my number 3, I think. Black Panther is easily, not even arguably one of the top 5 movies. You can't even argue that.
I'm just not super into Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. I just find his character to be kind of subdued and boring, which I get is the character.
That's fine. That's the case, but it still doesn't matter. The movie's awesome, and Michael B. Jordan is amazing.
Michael B. Jordan is amazing. He's amazing in everything he does. I saw the Fantastic Four he was in just the other day. It's a bad movie, but Michael B. Jordan is great. So just that's like a status quo, hey, oxygen helps you live, Michael B. Jordan is great. You just assume that going in. So, Michael B. Jordan is great in this movie.
And Killmonger is quite possibly the best villain in it.
Yeah.
Outside of Loki and Vulture.
I think just my thing with this movie is that I don't have a desire to rewatch it. It was fine while watching it, but it doesn't do a lot for me, where I don't see any reason to rewatch it. I think the acting is very good, the story is very good, but I think Chadwick Boseman's character, Killmonger's kind of right. Yeah. So, I don't have a reason to root for the hero in this movie when, the villain is the one guy who's correct. We're just yeah.
The thing is, you sympathize with him, but you still don't want him to be a murderer.
You don't want him to be a murderer, but the thing is, his motivations make a lot of sense. His grievances are legitimate.
That's why the movie's so good. But you're arguing with yourself. You're arguing for why the movie's so good, though.
But the thing is, I don't feel that same thing from the hero. And the hero just feels kind of lackluster and falls flat. And I think that's a problem.
I think you're right there. That's an inarguable problem with this movie.
I wouldn't say that this is a bad movie. This is a great film. It's just when I compare it to the other films, which one do I want to rewatch? I'm just not as into this one. There's a lot of great things about this movie. The representation is huge for Hollywood, and this is a important step forward for the industry, for just the culture. This is all very important stuff. And like I said, these performances are amazing. Michael B. Jordan, that's an Oscar-worthy performance. So, or at least Oscar nomination-worthy performance.
I think he should have been nominated.
They should have given him the nomination and then, screwed him over out of it. But they should have at least given him the nod because, he is one of the best actors working today. So, and I don't think that Chadwick Boseman is necessarily a bad actor either.
I've seen a lot of movies. I've seen him play Jackie Robinson and James Brown and Thurgood Marshall and good in every. But he doesn't have the charisma, I think, what you're wanting out of.
Right, and I get that the character, that's what makes him different, is that he's this quiet, reserved character. But it's hard to make a movie around that character and make you want to follow that character's arc. It was a good movie, but it didn't necessarily work for me the way some of the other movies did. Where if someone says, do you want to watch Captain Marvel or Black Panther? I'm going to be you know what? Captain Marvel is definitely a worse movie, but it's definitely more fun to actually sit down and watch.
I disagree. I think Wakanda as of itself is an awesome character in this film, and that's really cool because you never really a setting play that high of a role. But I do have a question for you then. So are you saying Black Panther would have been a better movie if Michael B. Jordan was Black Panther?
It might have shot to number 1 on the list.
Yeah.
I'm going to be completely honest. So I don't think it's necessarily the writing or directing, but I think Chadwick Boseman as the main character doesn't work for me. And the thing is, like, the entire time I'm watching this movie, like, I'm just thinking to myself, man, Michael B. Jordan is killing it, and I just don't care about Chadwick Boseman at all. And I think that is a problem. Where, like, at least like with the Batman 89, for example, where Jack Nicholson is chewing the fuck out of that scenery, like, Michael Keaton is still holding his own, and he is doing the quiet, reserved character, but making it work. Because he's given, like I said, that charisma, that cool you were mentioning. Chadwick Boseman is dealing with a Jack Nicholson level performance of someone chewing the fuck out of that scenery and just giving this emotion and depth. And he's just like, I'm just going to be quiet and stern looking. Like, that's cool, dog.
I still like him, and I think also the supporting cast is still good too. I love characters Fury and Boy.
Oh, I liked Smaug and Bilbo. They were great. The cop dude, he was Bilbo Baggins, and what's his name? Andy Serkis.
Yeah, it's funny because there's only two white guys in the film. And
he wasn't Smaug. He was Gollum.
Doctor Strange is Smaug.
Yeah, Doctor Strange is Smaug.
Yeah,
Smaug.
Andy Serkis.
Martin Freeman.
Yeah,
Freeman.
Yeah,
yes.
Bilbo Baggins. For Watson, whatever. I don't know. It's a solid movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm very glad for what it offered to the culture in moving forward, and I think it's a very important movie, and I think there's a lot to like about it. But in terms of just me rewatching these movies, how likely am I to rewatch this one? It's a bit lower on the list because it's like, it's really good, it's really competent, but it's not just like so stupid that I want to watch it over and over again, and it's not so brilliant that I want to watch it over and over again. It's just like, it's a solid like B+, A-.
It also has a sweet James Bond riff at a certain point that I was all about, especially since I happened to be watching a lot of James Bond movies at that point. So that was just luck of the draw for this one.
Yeah, any other comments on Black Panther before we move on?
I'm shocked that Ant-Man is going to rank higher than Black Panther.
When you see where Ant-Man ranks, you're actually going to be really shocked.
I think I didn't say much about Black Panther, but I think this is like, this is one I'm not quite sure is actually a good movie, but it's pretty close.
You guys are out of your mind.
But it's still undeniably Ryan Coogler's worst movie by a long shot.
I mean, I actually completely agree with that. I mean, like, when the other films, like I did Fruitvale Station and Creed and Black Panther, two of those are actually, I'd say all three are actually arguably masterpieces. Like, for as lukewarm as I am on Black Panther, I think a lot of it just comes down to Chadwick Boseman's like performance. But I think like the movie itself, and if Michael B. Jordan was playing Black Panther, I wouldn't have these issues.
So which I'm honestly shocked they didn't just cast him. He's so much better.
He didn't get a chance to because the Russos cast Black Panther in Civil Wars.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
And they didn't realize that Michael B. Jordan exists, and it's just like, fuck, just put that man in every movie. He's so good.
They fucked up. They fucked up big time.
Speaking of the Russo brothers.
Oh.
Transition. Next up on the list is Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
Oh, wow.
I'm surprised this one's lower than First Avenger because it's way better movie than First.
Disagree, and so does the rest of the panel.
You guys are out of your fucking mind. You were talking about the action scenes, the CGI stuff. This movie kills it with the practical effects and
the shaky cam, so you can't see any of it.
It's like a Taken movie.
I disagree. I think it looks awesome.
When Captain America just ran up that fence in like 27 shots, that was amazing.
You guys are out of your mind. This is the best Captain America story arc. The coolest spy espionage.
Disagree with the first sentence. Agree with the second sentence.
It's such a waste of like Captain America being in a time he doesn't recognize. It uses it for jokes and nothing else.
I disagree. First of all, the joke at the beginning where he's like, what's this Rocky? And there's a second one. Loved that. That was great. But I think this movie does a great job of introducing Falcon into the fold. Anthony Mackie does a great job. I think the spy thriller aspect of it, of him learning that he has to live in a more complex world than America of the 40s where you just punch Nazis and everything turns out okay. I think that, the fact that he has to adjust to a more complex, nuanced world with areas of gray, I think is a great place to take the character. And I think his conflict of what to do about Bucky is great in the film. Robert Redford gives a great performance. I think this is a very solid, fun spy thriller, which is admittedly a little bit stupid that Hydra infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and was just like, we're gonna wait like 60 years before we do fucking anything. Is a really goofy plot point of just like how long they waited post World War II to do anything. When you think about like all the conflicts America involved itself with before that, like the Iraq War or fucking Vietnam even, like the fact that they had all these opportunities to do shit and then just waited till like 2014 to do anything.
Well, I think the idea is that they were doing subtle.
I don't know. It feels like a really long con, and I'm just like that part's a little bit ridiculous. But I thought it was a fun, fast-paced spy thriller, and it was good because it was kind of one of the first Marvel movies to say, "Hey, we realize superhero movies are getting stale, so let's switch the genre."
Yeah, it stepped out of the comfort area, which is what I love about this film.
No, they just switched the skins. They switched the skins.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
It's still just a normal Marvel movie, but they put like some spy espionage spice on the top. It's not really a spy espionage movie.
I mean, it still has got the hidden elements there with Hydra, and it's got. I think it does have a good villain. I think even though Winter Soldier doesn't get to act a lot, he's a strong villain.
So my thoughts on this movie are it has inarguably, absolutely the best scene in the entire MCU, which is when he visits Peggy in the home. There is nothing even close to like the strength of that scene in any of the other movies.
Let me give you a counter to that. The best scene in the MCU is when Valkyrie falls off that ship.
Okay, the second best scene in the entire MCU. And this is like premier Marvel betting on the wrong emotional horse. Like that scene of him dancing with Peggy while she's old and kind of like not with it is so emotionally taut. And it shows what was strong in the first Avenger was his arc with Peggy, not his arc with Bucky, who I fucking didn't even remember existed until they explained it 55 times in the movie.
Oh man, so you're both like so wrong and so correct at the same time. I'm just so confused. His arc with Peggy was great, but also his arc with Bucky was great.
Yeah, his bromance with Bucky is.
And let's try to avoid talking about the first Avenger until we get to it much higher on the list where it deserves to be.
Can I say one more thing regarding this?
No, you're
so
wrong.
This is another movie that suffered because I watched it twice, and the first Avenger did not suffer that exact fate.
This is a movie that holds up much better on a second viewing than first.
But as I said, I like Spider-Man 3. I like my movies goofy. So.
Ah man, you're so full of shit.
That's why you don't like this movie, because this movie is one of the least few films.
I mean, no, it's like it's goofy. It's goofy, but like it doesn't let you know it's goofy. Like you have to like actually sit down and process it to be like, yeah, that actually was kind of stupid. But sitting down and watching it, you don't realize it's stupid. So I give it a thumbs up.
Well, and as far as comics go, Captain America is definitely not in my upper echelon of favorite comic characters.
Well, that's because you're wrong and hate America.
But what I'm saying is, in the MCU, Captain America has the best set of films. It's not even easily.
And you're probably right about that, but I would say Captain America has always been, in my opinion, one of the greatest comic book characters because he embodies what, like, you think about America when you're in school as a little kid and what you want America to be.
It's not America at all.
It's not America at all, but the thing is, those ideals are things that there are a lot of people in this country who try to embody and try to make that country that, and like that's like the goal. And so I think that character represents like the good parts of America that still make this country worth loving. And I think that is a very important thing. And the fact that they stick this character in this complex modern situation and him trying to work with those old moral values, I think is brilliant. And Chris Evans gives a fantastic performance in this film. Second only to his performances as the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four movies.
Actually, he is good in those movies.
Oh, he's great.
Those are terrible films. Good.
The first one actually holds up pretty well. The second one,
I won't defend those, so you don't need to crucify me for that.
Yeah, those are absolutely dreadful.
I have to defend the first Fantastic Four on a podcast coming up that I'm guesting on.
No, you can't.
Hot takes.
It's impossible.
Well, just listen to that podcast when it comes out. We have so many movies to talk about that I'm just not going to get into that right now.
All right, let's go.
All right, next on the list, speaking of Chris Evans, we've got Captain America Civil War next on the list.
You got first Avenger higher than Civil War. You guys are out of it.
I did it. Agent of Chaos, right?
I hate you guys so much.
I mean, in fairness, Victor, we did it.
We did it? Oh, I'm so happy.
You are out of here. Civil War, I love Civil War. Civil War, the airfield scene alone that's my favorite.
So remember how I was talking about how Iron Man 3, I didn't buy Tony's arc and thought it was full of shit? Tony's arc in this film is actually really freaking good.
It's amazing. Yes, it's great.
Oh,
so good.
Like this
so
this is some of the most believable acting from Robert Downey Jr. in the franchise. And I think what this surpasses the comics, where in the comics they're like, who should you root for, Iron Man or Captain America? Where it's pretty fucking obvious you should root for Captain America in the comics. In this, there actually are layers of gray where you can really decide who you want to root for. The film leans you towards Captain America, but you could understand Iron Man's side very easily. And so I think that the movie does a really good job of establishing a realistic conflict between the Avengers and how it would escalate.
Yeah.
I think the performances are great. I think it's well paced. I think the villain at the end kind of falls flat. Just the heartbreaking final battle between Cap and Tony, I think, is the highlight of the film, not the airport sequence, which is fine. It's fun, but I think that is the highlight of the movie. And, Captain America being like, hey, yo, where are you from? Oh, you're from Queens? I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, yo, New York, let me grab my crotch. Hey. So that was pretty good.
And also, this does, out of all the other films, does such a good job of building upon films that came up. And the big twist with Bucky having been the person that kills Tony's parents. It adds such an emotional layer, and it makes that final fight between them, it makes it have gravity so good. And talk about Chadwick Boseman, I love him in this film. I love him as a supporting actor, I think, still, because I think he plays Black Panther awesome. Civil War, he was one of my favorite parts of it. And also I love the introduction of Spider-Man. I feel like we get two intros here, Black Panther and Spider-Man, and they both really work. Spider-Man feels a little forced into the movie, but that's understandable. I'm giving off of that.
So here, let me make this movie way better for you. Black Panther is played by Michael B. Jordan, introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I don't need that here. I think Chadwick is great in this film.
No, you're right, because honestly, he would distract and take away from the film, because you would just be focusing so much on Michael B. Jordan. No one would be talking about Spider-Man, because no one would care. Like, Spider who? Man, Michael B. Jordan's in this movie.
You don't like Chadwick in this film?
Fine.
I mean, do you think that he comes across better in Civil War than he does in Black Panther because he plays a little bit better as a supporting actor?
Comes across the same to me.
Oh. I like it.
He comes across as remarkably fine.
Remarkably mediocre.
But the thing is, when you're in a movie with much better performers, it's hard to pay attention to him. Like, oh, that's sweet, Chadwick Boseman. Oh, there's Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. Oh, who's in this other movie? Oh, it's freaking Michael B. Jordan. I don't care about you, Chadwick Boseman. I'm sorry.
Nah, I liked him a lot in this movie, and I like his in the scenes where T'Chaka dies, and that adds some weight to him. And he has that little moment outside with Black Widow where they're on the bench and talks about getting his revenge, and I think that's a really powerful scene also. So you've got several different arcs going on, which could add into a jumbled mess. You have so many characters, but it all works so well. It is really weird that best fights between people ends up being the one where it's all the heroes. That goes to like, oh, your villains are so bad that one of your best movies is when you're just have heroes fighting each other. That kind of
I do like how Ant-Man is just a huge Captain America fanboy. Throughout the films,
and he's great in it too.
But also it makes sense. We're like in a universe where Captain America was a real dude. Like if there was literally like, hey, in World War II there was this like super soldier who literally wore red, white, and blue and just like punched the shit out of Nazis. Like there'd be craft articles written about that dude as being just like this fucking insane badass, and like all three of us would be like, yeah, that guy was pretty fucking rad. And then just like crash landed into ice and was never heard of again. Oh wait, no, he's just like back fighting crime. Like, all three of us would be like, that's the coolest fucking dude to ever live.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, Paul Rudd being like, I get to hang out with Captain America, fanboying out, is very realistic for a dude who grew up in that society, in that world. So, I think that's a good aspect of realistic world building. So, I like that.
We don't get much Vision, we don't get much Scarlet Witch, we don't get much...
A
Hawkeye, but yeah.
How will we survive?
I love Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch, though, and I'm actually excited he's playing a major role coming up.
And look, the guy who plays Vision is a good actor. What, Paul Bettany?
Paul Bettany.
Yeah, he's good, and it's a shame that he just like wasn't given much to work with that character.
But you got big arcs going on with Iron Man, with Captain America, with Black Panther. Those are kind of and then Black Widow. Those are your kind of your four main stars of the films. Even though the plot sort of circulates around Bucky, he never really gets to do anything in any of these films, honestly.
What if Terrence Howard played Black Panther?
No. No, Chadwick's way better. I think you're going to say, what if Terrence Howard played Winter Soldier?
Yeah, that's what I thought, too.
What if Terrence Howard played Howard the Duck?
I'd be fine with that.
But any other comments on Captain America Civil War before we move on?
I think it's a great film, and I'm appalled that you guys put it below some...
I mean, I ranked it the highest of the Captain America movies. It's just all the Captain America movies ranked high on my list.
I mean, it is the best of the Captain America movies. This is the best...
I mean, I ranked it higher than First Avenger and Winter Soldier, but just like, thanks to Victor.
I mean, let's be real. This is an Avengers movie without Hulk and all it.
Yeah, pretty much.
The only thing I'll say is I don't buy the central conflict between Iron Man and Captain America. By the time we got to them fighting, I was like, this fucking would not happen.
Why?
First off, a camera in the middle of the woods somehow caught the Winter Soldier killing Tony Stark's parents.
Yeah, it happened.
And they kept that footage.
Yeah.
Like it didn't get erased by an intern at some point in 20 years.
Second off, Tony knows Bucky's been brainwashed at that point and is rehabilitating and has no sympathy for that.
But Tony, that's the thing about Tony. Tony's a dick. Have you not realized that from any of the movies? Tony's just kind of a dick, and he doesn't really go off, even though he's really intelligent.
The thing is, you're talking to a gentleman, Mr. Victor Krause, who has played Final Fantasy IV, who has played several Final Fantasies where brainwashing is a thing, and then when your buddy's no longer brainwashed, you just forgive him and invite him right back into the party until they get brainwashed again and then betray you again. Like, damn it, Kane! Should have known!
Yeah.
Well, I don't know anything about Final Fantasy, but the point is that that's like somehow Iron Man is this incredible, and Tony Stark he's this incredible, likable guy just because Robert Downey Jr. has such charisma. But if you really look at his character, he does things to help people, but he's just a dick. And it seems totally believable that he could go, oh, I get that he wasn't under his own control when he killed my parents, but he still killed my parents, so screw this guy, I will murder him.
That wasn't him being an asshole. They play it like he's being very emotional, and he's very good in that scene, but I just don't believe that Tony Stark would believe some video camera over his friend.
I don't know. I don't think you've been paying attention to Tony Stark, then.
I mean, I don't watch these movies very much, so maybe.
I mean, I buy it. I understand, like, the irrational, stupid nature of it, but I understand that, like, when you're emotional, like, rational thoughts are pushed to the side sometimes. So I buy it, but I understand why Victor doesn't. But yeah, typically, like, if someone's brainwashed in a superhero movie, man, you just got to give it a pass. Like, all right, you murdered my parents, but you were brainwashed, so that wasn't really you, so pass.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think if the exact central emotional arc of that movie worked, it would certainly be top 5 for me.
So it's just that thing is such a huge part of the movie that doesn't work for you. That's why you plummet it.
You can't whiff the actual most important thing when you're making a movie, which is the emotional center. And I did not buy that at all. And the action wasn't cool enough Marvel action all kind of blends together for me. So it's tough to be like, well, this one had cool action.
The airport scene. Do you think that anything considered the airport scene as far as action goes?
The best action scene, as I've said, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Captain America dancing with Peggy Carter in Winter Soldier.
Your kind of action, all right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's the kind of action I want to get. Hey-o!
All right, let me... If First Avengers...
I'm into older women, what can I say?
First Avengers got to be next.
Nope.
Doctor Strange.
Nope.
Oh.
Next up on the list is Iron Man 1.
Wow.
Okay.
You guys are crazy.
That's mostly me. I'm the one who tanked this one. So
interesting.
I hate this podcast. I've never listened to this podcast.
All right, so here's the thing. This movie is great up until Tony finishes his cheeseburger. And then and then it's just like kind of boring and dull. It perks up a little bit when they're having that pizza from New York, where you're just excited to see that big, beautiful New York pizza on screen. But overall...
So you don't like Obadiah Stane becoming the villain?
Not really. His line, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. That's fun. And I thought it was very clever to move the Iron Man origin story from Vietnam to Afghanistan, modernizing it. That was very clever. The whole, terrorist situation forcing him to build a weapon. I thought it was well-paced. It was brilliant. The acting was great. It was very believable, like how he would act in the situation. The drama was there. The original clunky Iron Man suit was cool. The press conference was fun. And then the movie just gets hella boring. And so just like half of this movie is just,
I mean, the movie is, they built the whole MCU off of it because the movie was that good, that popular.
Yeah, that first half was that good. Well, but if you're actually sitting down and watching it as a movie, that second half is just, painful to watch, drags,
I disagree.
Boring.
I do think it slips back into the convention of what you would expect of this film. But this is also the first movie in the MCU, so it can be expected. But I don't think it's bad.
But I think everyone, puts it on this pedestal because it was the first one.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think they're ranking it way too high because it's the first one.
Yeah, it's not as good as it's being made out.
Robert Downey Jr. is great. Terrence Howard, Oscar-worthy performance from Terrence Howard in this
really
film.
Should have kept him on.
But and look, I'll say that Jeff Bridges does a good job, and so does Gwyneth Paltrow. But I think the writing for Jeff Bridges' character in the second half isn't particularly good. But the acting is great, and I think the first half of the movie is so good that people don't realize how terrible the second half is. It's.
I think I'm willing to go along with that hypothesis. This I will say though is a movie I've seen I think 3 or 4 times, and it has held up on those rewatches, which is why it ranked so high for me. And I do think this is one that, I'm willing to say is a good movie. 3 stars out of 5.
Damn, you guys are
high praise.
You guys are crazy. I would give this one up. This one to me is
It's so weird that I generally consider myself to be a fan of Marvel. And I'm shitting on these movies so much because I'm I like Marvel comics. I read comics sometimes. So I'm yeah. And here I am just as I'm going through each of these, yeah, this was kind of... The thing is, I don't think... most of these movies aren't bad. I don't think this is a bad movie. But it's just the second half is so unremarkable that I don't see why it gets the praise that it does.
I think there is just some joy of watching someone kind of invent... for laymen like myself who don't know that much about comics, as far as we were concerned, Robert Downey Jr. was inventing Iron Man on screen while we were watching it, and it was it was really cool to see, and he's just so goddamn good in the movie.
Yeah, I mean ultimately the movie is so successful because of him
and visionary director Jon Favreau.
Director of Elf.
Jon Favreau. You know what, Jon Favreau. This movie could have been really bad though, so you're kind of shitting on him in a way because he doesn't really have like a sustainable... Wait, you don't
like Elf?
Well, he doesn't have like a sustainable style. You don't look at it and go, oh, Jon Favreau. You know, he's not... You don't...
Well, I think that's actually to his credit that he can hop styles so well. I think that's... And the thing is, he's done a bunch of good movies. He's not Tim Burton where every movie feels the same.
No, and he doesn't... I wouldn't say he's probably a very artistic director either. I mean, look at the movies he's acted in. A lot of them are, you got swingers and that kind of stuff. He does, yeah. He does he's not like, I don't think like a super artistic guy, but this movie could have easily failed in somebody else's hands, so I think we do need to give him credit.
No, I don't think he's bad. I just think it's funny that recently now everyone thinks he's a god because he made fucking Jungle Book and Lion King. He, like, in the trailers for those, he literally gets visionary director credit. Like,
yeah.
I didn't see Lion King. I saw Jungle Book. It was remarkably okay, like Iron Man.
I think that's sort of his thing, is being, he's all right. I mean, he's solid.
He's solid.
Iron Man 1 is at very least half a great movie.
Yeah.
I will concede that.
The cave part is by far the best part. When he's in the cave, and when he creates Mark 1, that's the coolest part. And he walks out for the first time wearing the Mark 1 armor. Badass. Amazing.
Yeah, it's like how Midgar is the best section of Final Fantasy VII.
Oh my god. This is like a music one where you can't shut up about Kiss, like a movie one. Final Fantasy. I
mean, look, Final Fantasy just tells better stories than Marvel does. No. Anyway, next up on the list, we have Captain America, the First Avenger.
All right, this movie is awesomely mediocre.
Yeah, this is top 10 Captain America: The First Avenger.
This is one of the few actually good movies in this franchise.
You guys are out of your fucking minds.
This is a masterpiece. Dare I say, cinematic classic.
This is by far the worst of the Captain America trilogy. It's decent. It's a decent origin film, but I'm pretty sure I had it in the very bottom.
Why do you hate America?
Yeah. Have you ever thought about that?
I don't. This is going to be unpopular opinion. I do not like Hugo Weaving as Red Skull.
Oh, you're out of your fucking mind.
He does not do it for me in this film.
Hugo Weaving,
I love Hugo Weaving.
Great at everything he's in. Fantastic in Lord of the Rings.
Elrond, yep.
Better in The Matrix.
Oh my
best in Captain America.
Nah.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but...
Well, my plan to trick you didn't work. Like, do two statements he agrees with, and then one he doesn't, but he's on the momentum train. That's how propaganda works, buddy.
Not crazy. He does not pull a very compelling Red Skull.
He is Red Skull. When I think of like dudes with like creepy German faces, like Hugo Weaving's my guy.
The king.
Like he is so great. He like chews the scenery so well and just feels like Red Skull, feels like a great foil for Chris Evans. Chris Evans as a character and just like how he's all heart and doesn't have the body to keep up makes his like Captain America very believable. And I love the dynamic of like Bucky initially being like the badass and like, taking, Cap under his wing and then the reverse after the serum, which is fun because in the comics, Bucky's usually like Cap's little bitch, like his sidekick. But the way that they did it in the movie by making them equals and originally Bucky being the superior.
Yeah, I like that.
And then like the two like, readjusting their dynamic, but like there's still that respect is I think awesome. So I think Sebastian Shaw gives a great performance. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones as just like a grumpy old military guy. Come on. Amazing casting with that. But I think
a great cast, yeah.
But like the pacing of the story is so well, and the fact that it takes place so far in the past where they don't have to shoehorn in a bunch of other like shared universe bullshit and they just tell a good story instead. Like, this is a great movie, and I debated about where to rank it, and at some point it was like 2 or 3 for me. And then, I readjusted and ranked it below the other Captain America movies, but this is a great film. Better than Iron Man 1, according to math and myself. So, yeah, this is just This is great.
I think.
Look, I just like Marvel more than you, Steve. It's okay.
I think this movie is sincere in a way that almost none of these other movies are, and that, like, it just really worked for me. And I will admit, I haven't seen it since the theater, but I do remember a lot about it, and I remember how it made me feel.
If you watch it again, it will not be. You will rank it a lot lower. I promise.
We'll see, but it's another one that was still in the moment where they were hiring real directors, and like Joe Wright, I haven't seen a ton of his movies, but he's well regarded, even if he's not like 100%. But like I think this movie is like legitimately good. 3.5 stars.
Yeah, and I like the line, him saying like I punched Adolf Hitler in the face 237 times or whatever it was, like referencing the number of times he actually did it like in comics. But then it was also like, what he did on stage. Like, his arc is so believable and so well paced. And like his desire to do good, it's so great. This is a damn classic. You know what? I'll give it 4.5 out of 5 stars.
And it also has like a pretty compelling romantic arc that I think, as I will say, The Winter Soldier does pay off remarkably well.
Yeah, so it's a cinematic classic. Steve is wrong.
All right, fine.
Any guesses as to what's next on the list?
It's got to be Ant-Man.
I have no fucking idea.
So it is an insect-based superhero.
Oh, it's Far From Home.
It's Spider-Man Far From Home. Ant-Man is still in the running.
Wow.
What number are we on? Like, what is?
Let's see. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Top 6. Far From Home.
Okay. Far From Home's good. Far From Home.
That's about where I had it.
Yeah, Far From Home. Same as Homecoming. Very good villain. Very good actor villain.
Oh my god, yes.
One of the best parts. And what I like more about Far From Home than Homecoming is this actually gets to branch out from the sidekick routine.
Yeah, but his relationship with MJ is actually really well done in this movie, like shockingly well done.
They have great chemistry.
They have great chemistry. The writing is much better than in Homecoming. I think the villain isn't as good as Homecoming's villain, but I think the rest of the movie is better, and so that's why it elevates. But I think Jake Gyllenhaal is great as Mysterio, not Michael Keaton great, because it's hard to be Michael Keaton great. But I do like how they got some of the crazy comic book visuals with Mysterio, like in those hallucination sequences.
Yeah,
those
and
were
there's
very
a really
good.
Interesting take on this new way to do it, and it's a more modern version. Kind of like
I do like how they also acknowledge the bad writing of Marvel movies in this, where at the end they do the sequence so you really thought he was from another universe, you actually bought that. Yeah. The fact that they just acknowledge yes, this is the kind of shit we're in right now. I thought that was pretty clever, and let's talk about the J. Jonah Jameson thing.
Dude, that was when I saw. I was trying not to read spoilers at that time, so when I saw J.K. Simmons pop up, I was so excited.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons is great, and him just playing an Alex Jones version of J. Jonah Jameson, just this dude who runs a shitty YouTube channel, is amazing. And, bringing him back is great, but, and also, the setup of where it leaves Spider-Man is really interesting.
I am skeptical about that, but we'll see what happens. Because we already have, most of the MC characters don't really have a secret identity. So that's one of the things I liked about Spider-Man.
But most of them, also, didn't theoretically commit, murder to another superhero in cold blood. So, which I feel should be really easy to disprove, because if his suit is as technologically advanced, it should probably be recording everything, and Happy can just pull up video of the entire transcript. There's no reason why that should be a thing, but also, man, hot Aunt May still in the movie. Marissa Tomei.
Hot John Favreau in the movie.
Hotter John Favreau.
Damn, son.
the visionary John Favreau. Making a
visionary director.
Making a cameo as an actor.
And a visionary
actor, too.
So I think it's interesting that after all of these years, Marvel finally made a movie about CGI.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool. And I understand where you're coming from on the villain thing here, Greg, but I am partial to Jake Gyllenhaal over Michael Keaton, so I'm going to give him the win here. He also gets like a very classically Jake Gyllenhaal thing to do, which is right after he cons Peter out of the glasses. That fucking laugh that he does when he shrugs and says, "How easy was that?" is like penultimate Jake Gyllenhaal shit.
That's true. He was very Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie. And like that entire speech he gave right after that was pretty tremendous of him just like shitting on Peter Parker for being stupid and shitting on like
Tony
the
Stark.
audience for believing that.
Yeah. And then I think the one thing that bugs me a little bit about these Spider-Man movies is they kind of play with the idea of him not being able to get what he wants, but then at the end they just give it to him anyway.
That's true.
And I do think this is where the Raimi Spider-Mans like really fucking knock it out of the park, is he just can't have it all. And I think the other thing is that in like, I think classic Spider-Man lore, it'd be hard to disagree that he's a poor kid from Queens, is it? But then in this, he's like Tony Stark's like godson, basically, and that is like a really weird disconnect.
Well, yeah,
And you know Tony left him some money in the will.
Yeah, that does ruin his character a little bit.
Yeah, which I think plays into the he's not supposed to be able to have it all, but in these ones he kind of has it all. Like the J. Jonah Jameson thing at the end kind of takes away some of all.
I think that was a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this movie is a good time, and it has one of the actual compelling villains in a Marvel movie, which I think is great. It also pretty heavily references Final Fantasy with the four elemental fiends.
Well, actually, those are characters from the comics, Adjust Glasses.
Yeah.
Which were written in the year 1990, as far as I'm concerned. So,
any other comments on Far From Home before we move on?
Man, I thought I had one other thing, but this one's good. 3 stars.
Yeah, I give this an 8.5 out of 10.
All right, so next up on the list we have, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my
You
god!
got Ant-Man higher than Guardians of the Galaxy. Wow.
I mean, we
That's
all
shocking.
did.
Yeah. Guardians, I feel like this is going to be repeating the same thing. It's just really good director, really good cast. It's funny. It's shocking how they were able to take such low-level characters that almost no one had ever heard of before and turning into this huge franchise. And that's, in some ways, it's because nobody really knew the characters that they were able to pull that off. But also it just goes to show how well the movie's written and how well the movie's directed.
So, this movie, when I first saw they were making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I'm like, oh, you mean those comics that were too nerdy for even comics fans to read? They're going to make a fucking Guardians of the Galaxy movie? Well, this is going to bomb.
Yeah.
Who's going to see a Guardians of the Galaxy movie? Much in the same way where they made that documentary about Anvil, and I thought, who the fuck is going to watch a documentary about Anvil other than me? And then it turned out to be a massive hit. So this movie being as huge as it was completely surprised me. The fact that they made those, let's be honest, they were not actually good characters in the comics. They were kind of shitty, poorly written characters.
Yeah, they're D-level characters.
The F-level characters. Like, they were like the bottom of the barrel, shit tier Marvel characters, and then got turned into this massive franchise is mind-blowing to me.
Amazing, yeah.
The thing is, like, that is like the shittiest IP. Like, that you would give away for free. Well, yeah, we can do Guardians of the Galaxy. Why the fuck not? Like, I can't believe they made this movie work.
I can't believe they even made the movie, honestly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And, like, the thing is, like, I could see them doing this, like, in Phase 5 when they ran out of shit like they're doing now.
Like with Shang-Chi, yeah, right.
The fact that they made it work is impressive, but I honestly think the Guardians characters are better in every other movie they appear in. They're better in the last 2 Avengers movies, and they're better in Guardians 2 than they are in this movie. This is a fun movie.
You lost me. You were going great, and you totally dropped off.
It's a fun movie, but I think the characters ultimately got better over time, and that this is a good first outing for them, but it's a little bit more, like, dark and angsty than their other appearances. Or at least than the second one. Like, the second one is like a fun joyride. This one, like, they're all, like, more pissed off at each other. I like when they're, like, getting along.
Yeah, for sure, Drax and Peter Quill are not better in any of the other movies.
No.
I think Peter Quill is definitely the best in the second Guardians. And I think Drax is best in the in Avengers Endgame, because that's where he's the funniest.
You mean Infinity War?
Yeah, sorry, Infinity War.
Yeah,
Infinity War.
Infinity War, he gets a couple really cool moments.
Yeah, no, he's hilarious in that.
A lot more of him here, and
yeah, but he's all serious. I like the comedy.
He has his comedy though, and a lot of people have said how it's really cool that his character comes off as someone that has autism or something like that, and so he just says literally what he thinks, and it is an interesting way to take a main character and have them act it.
I mean, there's a lot of great characters. Like, the fact they had, like, Bradley Cooper, a conventionally attractive actor who could lead a movie, just playing, like, a CGI raccoon.
Well, and we haven't talked about Rocket. Rocket is crazy. He's just a CGI raccoon. He is one of the most human characters in the whole franchise as well.
Yeah, he's great. The fact that Vin Diesel got just hired to say, "I am Groot" over and over again. Like, the fact that they're, like, hiring actors with legitimate star power. Like, Fast and Furious is another episode that's been requested by our listeners, which we might end up doing. So, like, one of the biggest franchise stars in the world, and here he is just saying, "I am Groot." Does a pretty damn good job of saying, "I am Groot." I mean, it's a solid movie, but I'd rather watch Guardians 2. Any other comments on the weaker Guardians movie before we move on?
So, the Marvel template was sort of based on what Jon Favreau did in Iron Man 1. And it kind of got updated once Joss Whedon briefly took over. And then now it feels like it's kind of working off what James Gunn did in Guardians of the Galaxy, which is odd considering how much of a risk it was before and now how much of a home run it ended up being. And I think it's maybe more difficult to specifically ape what James Gunn does than even Joss Whedon. And I think that's why maybe a lot of these movies don't work quite as well for me, but I think this movie is genuinely solid. 4 stars.
Well, next up on the list, coming in 4th place, we've got Ant-Man.
Okay, so Ant-Man's a pretty good film, but for Ant-Man to be number 4 is absolutely ridiculous.
So here's the problem, is that the other films have been divisive, where, like, one person like, you know what? Iron Man 1, not that great. Black Panther, not that great.
But we all like this one.
Avengers 1, 4th from the bottom. But Ant-Man, we're all in agreement, yeah, pretty good.
Oh
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good for number, like, 15 or something. But 4.
Well, just, like, beloved amongst the panel, and that's why it ranked so high.
I mean, Ant-Man is a goofy, fun, silly heist family film.
Look, heist movies are clearly towards the top of this list for a reason.
Ant-Man has the best part of Ant-Man is the fight at the end with Yellow Jacket, who's a completely forgettable villain, where they're fighting really tiny and it like zooms out to the scene where they're on the train and they're like really tiny. It's just fun. It's just fun. I
think Yellow Jacket, just like as being like a complete psychopath, actually is one of the better villains in the MCU. I buy his motivations as a character as just like this just creepy dude obsessed with power. Like, I think that works for him.
He's the same as Obadiah Stane, though. He's like,
but I guess like Obadiah,
he's more like Kefka.
Yeah, I agree. He is more like Kefka. Good call there, buddy. It's a Final Fantasy reference. But I would say why am I blanking on his name? The older actor who plays the original Ant-Man.
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. He's great. Him just like, punching a dude at the start of the film is a great start to the movie.
And it is interesting that they chose not to use Hank Pym as Ant-Man, but I think that's because Hank Pym in the comics lore has a very divisive history. He slapped the Wasp. He's issues with domestic abuse, and he's just generally a jerk. He's kind of what they ended up taking some of Tony Stark's personality for. And
also, it would maybe be too similar to Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Here's another genius inventor. I think it's good to diversify, and like here's like a dude who's like a thief, a rogue, makes him different, stand out from the other MCU heroes. So I think it was more to make him stand out and less because of him slapping a woman in the comics, because they could have just left that out of the movies.
Nah, you can't leave it out.
Yeah, you can't leave that out. But Paul Rudd, great. The sidekick guy who does the really long stories.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
He's hilarious.
Michael Pena.
Yeah, Michael Pena. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, so all you haters of this movie, because I know a lot of people rank this towards the bottom, according to science, it's one of the best MCU movies. Top 4 is Ant-Man.
Can't argue.
Cinematic classic, masterpiece.
Masterpiece, yeah.
You know, it's like you've got Gone with the Wind, Titanic, Ant-Man.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I would have loved to see if Edgar Wright had actually been able to continue doing that.
That would have been cool. I honestly believe that Peyton Reed did a hell of a job. And I think this is like, I think this is one of the few Marvel movies where the action truly stands out. And there's another one that I quite frankly cannot believe we have not mentioned yet that I feel the same way about. But, and I think the problem with a lot of the Marvel movies is the action is sort of relegated to this other team that does all the previs. And this one, they kind of just didn't have any choice but to make it cool because of what it is. So there's a lot of like, and even in reading up on it when it was coming out, because I was initially excited and then let down that Edgar Wright wasn't going to do it. But reading about how they shot, like particularly the early scene where he's falling down the drain and all that stuff, it's really cool. They like actually did it instead of just CGIing everything.
Yeah, so Ant-Man, cinematic masterpiece. We're all in agreement.
10 out of 9 stars.
Yeah, 10 out of 9. Next up on the list, a film even better than Ant-Man, according to science, or according to magic. Doctor Strange coming in as the best solo film on the list.
How is Doctor Strange number 3? That is ridiculous.
So I gave it 20 points out of a possible 23.
Doctor Strange is a cool movie, but it does not deserve to be anywhere near this.
Well, according to math and science and magic... Because in my world, magic and science are the same thing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's third place. The numbers don't lie. You can look at this here.
No, I believe you.
That is wild.
It is kind of. I do find it that one scene where because
yes, we know the best scene in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Wong listening to Single Ladies alone in the library.
I like Wong. Wong is one of the best sidekicks.
Benedict Cumberbatch is great.
Yeah, he's great.
I think he's the worst part of the movie.
Oh my god!
No, I
think he's a perfect Doctor Strange, and yeah, he looks the part amazingly, and
he does a good job of hiding his accent.
Yep.
I think his arc is believable. Of just his storyline makes a lot of sense as to how that guy could end up in the situation he did. Like, it's all very believable with, like, what they set up his character to be. He never acts out of character. The magic system is actually surprisingly competent and good. There's some stunning visuals.
Yeah, it's like Inception in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but I would say, the thing is, I never liked Doctor Strange as a character in the comics. I just thought he was, like, some of the shittiest writing Marvel comics had ever done with his character. And the fact that they made this movie so good has made me reevaluate the character in a lot of ways. Where, like, they made his shitty stories actually work within the context of this universe. And, the ending was very clever with his confrontation with Dormammu.
I like that too. That's the best one.
Yeah, I think that is the reason I rated it as high as I did, is because so many of these movies whiff the the final conflict, and this one does such an inversion that it's, I have to respect it.
And also, it is nice that he is macking on Rachel McAdams, who was the love interest of Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes. So just like dudes who play Sherlock Holmes just end up hooking up with Rachel McAdams, who... I'm getting a little bit hot just talking about this.
However, I will say, talking about the Dormammu thing, Mikkelsen's, I can't remember the name of his character, is one of the most beloved villains of any movie.
Mordo?
No. That's what is the actor's name?
Right. What? Yeah. I know who you're talking about. The other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. He.
Elysius?
I don't know. Some bullshit Jack Kirby name that doesn't mean anything.
He just is there. He's like the same as Ultron or something. He's like, blah.
Yeah. I'm just not into Jack Kirby stuff.
Even more so, he's like Malekith in the Dark World. He's just kind of like, as the evil guy.
I thought Malekith was a better villain, even though I think the actor generally does a better job.
Mads Mikkelsen, I just love looking at him, but his character is completely worthless.
He has to play a villain no matter what. He just has that villain look. But I did like the setup for Mordo to take over and beat the villain in the next film, even though apparently that's not what they're going to do, because the next Doctor Strange 2
and they're making it like a horror film.
Yeah, and which sounds really awesome.
I mean, I honestly, I don't know how I feel about that, because I liked where they went with this film so much.
The Multiverse of Madness. But think about it, though. It's called the Multiverse of Madness, and apparently Scarlet Witch is going to play a big role in it, which she might be the villain, and I'm not sure. But if you take this kind of otherworldly, you can do whatever you want to in it, and you turn that into a horror film, that could be really cool. That's a movie I think Sam Raimi should direct.
Hell yeah. Although I think Scott Derrickson did a pretty good job.
With this, but I'm saying if you want to take it in more of the horror realm, I think.
But what I'll say, I think this is one of the best standalone hero films in the franchise, and according to math, the best standalone hero film in the franchise. Better than Iron Man, better than Captain America, even better than Ant-Man.
I can't believe anything's better than that.
I think my only issue with this one is I like the comedy doesn't quite always land.
No, I didn't. I wish the comedy elements weren't in it.
But I think the central emotional arc of this one is solid, and it has such a good final confrontation that it's
funnier
I don't know
than Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
What now?
I said funnier than Thor Ragnarok.
No, not even.
Except for the scene where Valkyrie falls after drinking, because that is just a comedy masterpiece right there. That scene.
The one problem I have with this movie, the one scene that always makes me laugh, because it makes me laugh in every movie, but it's just a conventional thing, when they use the defibrillators and they, he's already stopped breathing and they do the defibrillator and it sucks it back into his body. I don't know. That's just silly to me.
It's good stuff.
But every movie does that anyway.
But yeah, Doctor Strange, cinematic masterpiece.
All right, so then obviously we've only got Infinity War Endgame left, so.
Well, you don't know that.
Oh, well, we haven't ranked the Raimi Spider-Mans yet, or Ang Lee's Hulk.
So anyway, next on the list, we have Endgame.
Oh, you got Infinity War higher than Endgame. Okay.
I
wasn't sure which way to go. I put Endgame as my top one.
As did I.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah, Endgame, because Endgame just, I could see how a lot of people don't enjoy the first hour to hour and a half of it.
You mean the best part of the movie?
But it has so many payoffs, and I get that's why some people are annoyed, but it does such an amazing job of balancing so many different elements and giving all these huge payoffs for 10 years worth.
Here's my thing. People complain about the first half of the movie. They
just want action, yeah.
They're just like, oh no, character building? Relatability to the arcs? Understanding how the characters feel? It's great. And look, the fact that they decided, this needs to be a time heist movie. This is a greatest hits CD, and going back to all your favorite moments, but then with a slight little remix. It's like the Beatles' Love album. Just we're gonna do stuff you love, but do a little bit different. As a big fan of Chrono Trigger, another Square Enix RPG, I love the time travel aspect of this. It's a lot of fun. And it felt like the most appropriately epic way to end the saga, where they had to, go back in time and deal with all these different, moments in the timeline to fix this problem. But it does a lot of good idea of subverting expectations by killing Thanos right away in the movie.
Yeah, that's pretty.
A lot of people don't expect that. Nope. I like that Howard the Duck was present in the final battle. That was great.
One thing I want to talk about.
There is a glaring flaw with this movie, though. A huge, huge flaw that I think we cannot ignore. Which is Sylvester Stallone's character from Guardians 2 is not present in the final battle.
He did.
No, but remember, at the end of that, they brought everyone back.
I know.
So are you telling me you don't want to see fucking Sly Stallone shooting down bad guys in this final Avengers confrontation?
No.
That would have been so fucking sick, and they dropped the ball hard.
That's because he's dead, because that's how
they brought him back to life with the snap. They brought back everyone. They brought back Anthony Mack and all those dudes.
I'm saying he died before the snap, because in Infinity War, Thanos, that stone, he gets off screen, and Sly and the Ravagers and all. Well, no, the Ravagers would have been separate then.
Yeah, so the Ravagers would have been
Ravagers might be alive, yeah.
What I like to think is that they just didn't show any shots of him, but Sly Stallone's character was there kicking ass in the movie. So that is the single biggest flaw with, honestly, the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that there's not enough Sylvester Stallone in these movies. Hopefully Guardians 3 rectifies this.
One thing I want to talk about real quick.
Other than Sly Stallone being just ruined in this movie by not being in it.
My favorite character arc, and this is divisive, going to be hugely divisive, probably just amongst the three of us. My favorite character arc of any film that this pulls off so amazing is what they do with Thor. And I love the fact that they give Thor depression, and he loses, and initially it's played off as a joke, that he's fat now, and it's just this laughable thing. But then at the end, he kind of discovers himself, and he discovers, hey, I am a hero still. And he doesn't lose the weight. He doesn't become this magnificent specimen again. He's still himself. He just realizes how to be a hero with who he is now. And really, that's honestly very deep. I think that that's just amazing that they could pull off the character that is like should be the least relatable of anybody becomes the most humanized.
And also, Captain America getting fucking Thor's hammer. Fuck yeah! That whole last sequence, is amazing. And when he wields it is obviously, I didn't know that was coming in the movie too, and everybody was cheering when I saw it first time. Pretty badass. Yeah, so I mean, I'm generally positive towards this movie. Victor, why is it shitty?
I'm actually generally positive towards it as well. I think it doesn't quite have the gravity that I loved in Infinity War, but it has it's almost the perfect Marvel movie in that it's so cotton candy and so just delivers in that final battle that I can't help but like it. And I think the Thor thing is handled a little weird, but ultimately I think I came out positive on it. And I think this was a very fitting, before Greg asked me to do this episode, this was the last Marvel movie I had watched, and I was like, you know what? They did it. That's the last Marvel movie I ever have to see. And I was very pleased with my experience, and I'm honestly impressed that it ranked as high as it did for me, considering it was the end, and endings don't always go so well.
Yeah, but it pulls it off well. I know a few of the other breakouts as far as characters go in it is Rocket is amazing in this movie. Actually, War Machine has surprisingly a huge amount of screen time as well, and he's really good in this one.
And Captain Marvel is surprisingly bad.
No, I liked her in this one. Like I said, I liked her better in this one, but she doesn't really get to do anything. That's one of the few annoying things, is that in the movie she just shows up at the last second to blow up the whole ship, and it's like she's just too powerful. I did like how Thanos is such a badass even without the Infinity Gauntlet, and I really like the fact that Scarlet Witch finally has a moment to shine as well, and that's leaning back on her comic.
Literally a moment.
Yeah, she has one moment, but that's leaning back onto her comics, because in Endgame, if it wasn't for Thanos shooting his whole army, she could have destroyed him. She could have won the whole fight herself, which is pretty badass. I like that, and the one character I don't really feel gets her due is Black Widow. That's the part that makes the movie not as great for me, just because they're building her up that she takes over. 5 years later, she becomes the leader of the Avengers, of what's left of them, and she becomes this leader, and I get why she sacrifices herself for Clint, because he has a family, blah, blah, blah. But really, she is kind of the leader that everybody needs, and the fact that she, out of all the women, she's the sole one that doesn't get to have that big, powerful moment in the team-up battle, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, and it would have been a perfect opportunity to just fucking get rid of Hawkeye. But I did like that scene a lot where they're kind of like wrestling to see who gets to jump in. That was pretty great. And Hugo Weaving was there, so that was also
well. That wasn't Hugo
Weaving. That's dude from Walking Dead who what's his name?
He was doing a Hugo Weaving.
Yeah, he's right, and he does. And in fact, I think he's much better as Hugo Weaving than Hugo Weaving is.
Well, you're wrong about that.
That's my hot take.
But I will say, I do like the idea when like Captain America went back to return all the Infinity Stones. That meant he had to like see Red Skull and like have an awkward chat with him. Like, hey, you. It's been a while. Yeah, here's this all-powerful Infinity Stone. Let me just hand that over to you, buddy. Even though I spent like an entire movie fighting to keep you from getting one of these. Okay, bye.
Yeah, I think there's some like ethics stuff with the actual ending of the time travel stuff where he just grows up and becomes an old man. That's kind of like, so now he has, with great power comes great responsibility, which I know is not him, and he just lives his life as if he didn't know all of that shit was going to happen.
I think we're supposed to assume that that's him from another timeline, and he comes over at the end to give into this timeline to give Falcon the shield.
He went back and decided to like live a peaceful life, and probably did some Captain America adventures in the past
in a different timeline.
That's
the only way that works, is that he came back from his new timeline into this timeline to hand over the shield.
But by far the best part of this film is that it inspired a great line in our one of our Game of Thrones songs for our Game of Thrones project, when we were doing reaction songs to every new episode of Game of Thrones less than 4 hours after airing. And the weekend that Endgame came out was also the same weekend as the big battle of Winterfell against the White Walkers. And so the line, "No Starks were harmed in the making of this film, no Starks died this weekend," was a highlight of that Game of Thrones song that we wrote. So
that's pretty good.
Shout out to
yourself.
Shout out to me and Steve for that. Other Steve.
One other thing about this movie, because this is my number one movie, but I am trying to point out the negatives real quick, because there are a couple of things that irk me. The other thing that I have a really hard time with, that I wish had been different, is the fact that Hulk does not get his payoff. He does not get his revenge moment with Thanos, and I don't like the development of him into Professor Hulk off screen. I get why that happens. I just don't think that was needed for this movie, and I wish it would have happened.
I was fine with it. I liked him sharing tacos with Ant-Man. That was cool.
And you don't even get, in the end battle, you do not even get one moment where you see him fight, and it sucks, because Hulk is the most underrepresented throughout the whole story, in a way. Which is weird, because he's the one who saves everyone. He brings everybody back. and also, if it wasn't for Tony Stark's selfishness, not wanting to lose his daughter, they could have saved so many more lives. By snapping everybody back and changing things from the last 5 years. But because of that, they have to live with these repercussions. Because think about this. Think about how many people died who weren't dusted away, that died because cars were abandoned, planes were abandoned, all this stuff. You would have killed thousands, if not millions, of people in the aftermath of the people who weren't dusted. And all the people are just dead now because Tony Stark didn't want to lose his daughter. And it kind of sucks.
Iron Man, the greatest villain.
Yeah. Did you guys think about that, though? Think about how, you're going to have people who are dusted, who are flying planes.
And the number of people who committed suicide out of depression.
Yeah. So, so you wouldn't even have, half of the planet, the life left. You probably have, a third of it.
But then how are we going to spin up into Iron Girl? Well, let's go through the list from the bottom to the top to see what the number one film is. Build the suspense. Coming in at the bottom, The Incredible Hulk. Followed by Avengers Age of Ultron. Then Iron Man 2. Thor, The Dark World. Followed by Thor. Followed by Iron Man 3. Followed by Captain Marvel. And then Thor Ragnarok. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Spider-Man Homecoming. the first Avengers coming in around the middle, followed by Black Panther around the middle.
So goofy.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier, above that. Captain America, Civil War, above that. Iron Man 1. Captain America, the First Avenger, above Iron Man 1.
Yeah, baby.
Spider-Man, Far From Home, above both of them. And above all of those, Guardians of the Galaxy, but even better than Guardians of the Galaxy, according to us, Ant-Man. Then Doctor Strange. Then Avengers Endgame. But the best film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in a stunning upset, it's actually the DC Comics film Joker. Better than all the MCU films.
We live in a society.
Yeah, so Joker is a great film.
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to hear anything about it.
It's better than all of these movies.
I doubt.
I'm willing to believe that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I haven't seen it yet, so
Why wouldn't you trust me? Do you want a spoiler?
I don't trust you because you ranked Ant-Man as number 5 or whatever.
He wears clown makeup in the movie.
All right.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Anyway.
It's a little twisted.
Yeah.
But I think I can get on board.
So the right below that, though, is Avengers Infinity War, so not quite as good as Joker.
I do love Infinity War because it's the Empire Strikes Back in a way that it actually ends on a negative note, and it's pretty awesome.
But it's lacking the Colt 45 guy. So
we're
really lacking like a smooth individual trying to sell me some liquor. That's really lacking from this film. But it has some good moments in it. Like Doctor Strange is great in this film.
Doctor Strange is awesome in this movie. He's way better than he is in Doctor Strange.
Yeah. I'll agree on that.
Yeah, he's pretty solid in this film. Star-Lord flipping off Thanos was pretty great. Seeing a middle finger in the movie was pretty fun.
Drax has a couple funny one-liners.
Yep. Iron Man complaining about like, oh, now I'm dealing with a wizard. All right. Yeah. It's the more I talk about this, the more I feel it doesn't deserve number 1. So someone else talk about it.
And think about this too, because you love Captain America. Captain America is pretty absent from this film. So
I mean, I didn't rank it as number 1.
Yeah, okay,
so.
I'm just saying. All right.
But yeah, there's a severe lack of Captain America in this film.
I think for me, this is full of, heroes that I generally like to love, but it's the first time in this whole franchise that we got a villain where I was like, they are absolutely fucked if they do not stop that guy, and he completely followed through. And oddly enough, that was really novel for entire franchise about people who need to be stopped, but like Josh Brolin destroys this movie.
Yeah, Thanos.
I mean, he's no Malekith, but he got the job done.
Thanos is obviously the best villain. Well, I think some people
have you seen Michael Keaton, sir?
But I really do think Thanos is the best villain in the film, just because he gets the most to work with, and he has the most screen time in this movie of any character, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, this is his movie. He's the star of the movie. The only way this movie could be better is if he was driving a car with Gamora and Star-Lord in the back seat, and then Gamora leaves like, hold on, let me talk to him for a minute. I will kill you and all of the people you love. Now show my daughter a nice time. The only way this movie could be better.
And what if he was played by Terrence Howard?
Yeah. So
you know what? You just made this movie even better. Also, the film is severely lacking Sylvester Stallone, introduced in Guardians 2.
No Michael B. Jordan either.
No Michael B. Jordan, but I understand why they didn't include Stallone in this, because it would have been unrealistic for him to lose to Thanos.
Oh.
So, it makes sense why they left Stallone out of this film in particular. I get that. You have to make it believable. So, makes sense. And that's probably why he wasn't shown at the final battle, because like with him and Captain Marvel, you're just like, they got this. Everyone else can just go home.
The thing that this movie does so well is that for a movie that has 20 A-list actors and characters, it balances it pretty well. Most everybody gets at least one little moment. Like we said, it's lacking on Captain America, but even he gets this one little moment where he saves the day when Black Widow's under attack. And but really, this is still kind of an Iron Man flick, as central
Yeah, it's really weird how, like, as a comics fan, Iron Man being the center of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where, like, if you're a comics fan, you know that Captain America is kind of the main guy in the Avengers.
It's just because he got popular in the first movie.
But in terms of, like, arcs that make sense, and, like, characters to latch onto and revolve a story around, Captain America makes way more sense. And so that's why watching these films is always kind of weird. We're like, you really should be giving him more screen time.
Well, in an Endgame, I mean, Captain America really is, like, in a lot of ways, the biggest part of Endgame.
Yeah.
So he finally gets his due there. But yeah, Infinity War it's an ensemble film, but it's still kind of cycled around Iron Man's ways, even though he spends most of the time on a ship. And him and Tom Holland, they have a pretty good chemistry. They play off each other well. I'm trying to think of any. I don't really have many negatives to say about this movie, honestly.
I would say the negative I have is that it's not as good as Endgame, and that I forgot to mention this in Endgame, but I think ultimately the Tony Stark scenes in Endgame are way better.
I do too. Yeah.
But I understand why Endgame ranked lower because it's severely lacking Doctor Strange. So, makes sense. More Doctor Strange, better movie.
Doctor Strange is absolutely one of my favorite parts of the movie. He is really cool in it.
All right, well, that was good for part 1 of our MCU discussion.
Okay, what's part 2?
Part 2 is ranking every single episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm joking. We're not doing that.
I've actually never watched a single episode.
Unless you want to give us like a huge PayPal donation for that shit, we're not doing an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. I don't care how many requests I get. I'm not doing that.
All right, but where would Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider rank in this?
Oh.
Well, wait, Ghost Rider 1 or Ghost Rider 2?
Either one. Pick your favorite.
23 and 7.
Okay. Don't tell me what that honestly, that's the because everybody's kind of freaking out right now because we don't have Keanu Reeves in the MCU. Yeah, they're trying to get him in. What we need in the MCU is Nicolas Cage immediately. Gotta get
Spare Keanu.
Look,
Spare Keanu.
Give Sly Stallone a Guardians movie where he's the star. Or, like, you know, him and Star-Lord teaming up together, his crew and Star-Lord's crew. Boom, make that happen, kids.
And then Nicolas Cage can play the villain. Can you imagine Nicolas Cage as an MCU villain? Like, hey, it would be
Nicolas
so good.
Cage against Sylvester Stallone. You just pitched a great movie.
Depends on who's making it, because
Shane Black.
as we stated, fuck. That's not ideal.
Honestly, if you take one of the Thor films or a movie that Taika Waititi is directing, you put Nicolas Cage as the villain, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
but then you lose Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, he'd be the...
What if you get Jeff Goldblum's character to team up with like a new character played by Nicolas Cage?
Dude, I'm down.
I can't even imagine.
And
okay,
and
so
Terrence Howard is the villain.
Yeah.
What if Nicolas Cage is the villain, but they get the main character to be played by John Travolta?
Hell yeah. I think what
if the John Travolta, he could play like an alien with like, you know, a beard and like dreadlocks and really long fingers?
I was just going to say Shang-Chi. You got Shang-Chi is going to be John Travolta, and then the Mandarin is Nicolas Cage, and there you go.
So, unfortunately, we have another podcast to record in like 20 minutes.
All right.
So,
what if they bring Galactus in and Nicolas Cage plays Galactus? Hell yeah. He's like, I'm going to eat your world. He's so bad.
And then you bring back Lawrence Fishburne to play Silver Surfer.
Hell yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, nailed it. What if they cast Keanu as... They could, honestly, Keanu could do Silver Surfer, because he doesn't take that much.
Come to me, my boy. Whoa.
Well, yeah, and then that would be a Point Break reference.
Yeah. I'm surfing. That'd be badass.
But yeah, so that's our episode. Were you guys happy with the ranking? Surprised by it?
I wasn't happy at all.
I was pretty happy with it. Like, Ant-Man ranked appropriately.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I was occasionally shocked, but, you know...
Then you remember what show you're on.
I remember not to be shocked with these goof trips.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, there's some of these movies that are actually good and some of them that are just Marvel good, and if they're as long as they're in some order.
Praise.
Yeah, that's
But you know, what I'll say is I like basically all of these movies. Like,
I
you
like
know,
every one of them, yeah.
There's maybe like 3 I think are kind of bad. 2 of them are Iron Man films.
Yeah. For the most popular character, he has the worst movies of any.
What about Thor?
Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
No, Thor's movies are better.
Yeah, no, I think Thor's the worst.
So here's what I will say to all the people on the internet. Search your feelings, you know this to be true. And look, it's going to sound outlandish when I say it, but then think about it for a second. Ant-Man has a better batting record of solo movies than Iron Man does. Like, you feel an angry gut reaction. You don't want to admit it. But then think about it for a second. Think about how shitty Iron Man 2 and 3 are. And think about how at least passable the Ant-Man movies are.
All right.
Well, that is our episode. Fine guess. Where can we find you on the internet? Steve.
I mean,
yeah, talk into your mic, not far away from it.
Sorry. You can, my band, Eye for None, we're not really doing much right now, but you can still look us up on Spotify, EYEFORNONE, or Apple Music or any of that crap.
And Victor, where can people find you on the internet other than our podcast?
I'm a frequent guest host or guest player on the Lipstick panel, but you can find my music at James Gameboy on Spotify, Patreon, Bandcamp, and my Twitter is at TheVictasticK.
All right, well, that is our episode. Bye, Internet!